Welcome, welcome, one and all, for another Humpday Q&A special. Oh, Yay. Scott, you made it then. Last second, Yay. You made it. Right, so we're going to get through the very beginning instructions because we've got a lot going on today. So yeah, let's do that. So yeah, welcome to the stream. Another Humpday Q&A. Scott, do you want to quickly do the do's and don'ts, quick as you can? No, can't hear you. Yeah, okay, Scott. Randall, it's your turn. Randall, it's your turn to do it.
No, it's Scott's turn. I did it the last couple of times.
We're gonna have to wait for the mic. Go on, Randall, quick, go for it.
Oh. So be nice. Don't post anything that's adult. Don't advertise or promote anything. Don't spam. If you post the same question later, I take it away from earlier. So don't do that. You just lose your place in line. And don't say the same thing over and over again. That's really, really annoying. I can mute you, so don't do that. Don't harass anybody. Have a good time and just enjoy yourselves. Put Q in front of your questions to let me know. I mean, for all you regulars, this is all old stuff. But for some of your new people, yeah, put Q in front of your question in the live chat. We will put it in our queue to be able to answer that for you. So that's the protocol. That's it.
All right, and then definitely have a good time. So let's just do some introductions. My name is Simon Lightfoot, Flutter community leader. We do not work for Google, just heads up on that point. And I'm a CTO at DevAngels London, and you can follow me on Twitter at DevAngels London. Scott, is your mic working?
Is my mic working?
Yes.
All right, there we go. I am Scott Stahl, also community leader, organizer, GDG Cleveland. Word is that I share a desk underneath the stairs with Dobby at DevAngels London. And I am still at the point in my coding career where Simon changes everything except my imports during reviews. No. Working on it.
Cool. Randall, I'm Randall Schwartz. I'm a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert, which means in theory, I might know more than average people, but in truth, I just know how to Google really, really well. Multiple full-time Flutter developer, and I'm a co-host of the show for a long time now.
Right. That's
and I'm also the question guy. That's it. That's the other important thing. Like we said a moment ago, I am watching the chat for questions.
Randall's always watching. That should be the all right. And we have some other people with us. Let's do some introductions. Kevin, welcome, Kevin, to the live stream.
How's it going, guys? Folks?
Yeah, good.
Kevin.
It's been at least 5 minutes since I've been on, so I figured it's time
short time no see.
I jump on and say hi. And there was a lot of things discussed today that cover things that I care about. So excited to either I come on or Scott and Randall just speculate. So I figured it'd probably be better if I just
yeah, that's definitely good. And we've got a couple other people. Let's get everyone on.
Yep.
So Majid, welcome to the stream. Hey, Majid.
Hey. Hi, everyone.
And also we have a Remy. Hey, Remy.
Hey.
Oh, did we lose a Randall? Randall, where'd you go?
Yeah. Hey, Kevin. I took myself off the stream so it wouldn't be so busy. That's
all. No, this is fine. We'll just get everyone.
Okay.
It's party time, kind of Randall. I think it's
party time. We only get this once a year.
We just need 3 more, and we could do Hollywood Squares or the Brady Bunch.
Oh dear. Now you're showing your age. So I missed a bit. I missed a bit about impeller. I came back to see like that square with all the dashes in. So I need to go back and look at that because I'm working on my 3D engine, and now I'm gonna have to rewrite it now.
Yeah, probably.
That's fine. I knew that anyway. Like,
wait, I thought you wrote it on master.
So actually, the point of what I'm doing is that actually more about I want to do my own 3D engine, right? Not use OpenGL where I need sort of framework, right? But on top of that, I think it'll have an impeller backend as well. So that'll be fun. What were the other features? I kind of wanted to go around the table. Like what did people find interesting? Should we start with you, Remy? Put you on the spot there.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I happen to know, Roman, what are you doing? Why aren't you on screen?
I already said that to him. Remy, you there?
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Yeah. Yeah. So what was your interesting thing that out of all of what was announced?
I'd say the dark 3 features that were announced, the alpha, it was very interesting.
You're breaking up there, but I think I heard the dark 3 alpha.
Yeah, the dark 3 alpha looked very interesting with the button matching features. I already got a few questions on Discord about this. Freeze.
We were actually having to play around with those a few streams ago, actually, the multiple return types and patterns and so on. I'm guessing yes, but you'd be working towards Kevin with the teams and so on. I guess that's really Michael Thompson's area, but I'm sure you know all about it.
Wait, which one? I'm sorry.
The like the pattern matching. So in the new dark 3 alpha.
I've been lucky enough. Michael's the main driver from a product perspective, which is kind of the lane I'm supposed to be in. That's my title. But a lot of the language design was done by Bob here in Seattle. So
Bob Nystrom.
Yeah, so he's Munificent Bob, I think is his Twitter handle if you're looking for him. Author of 2 best-selling books and many Dart language features. So yeah, he's been cranking on patterns and records for a while, and it's been cool to see it evolve.
Unrelated to patterns and language, but that's Rob's book.
Yep.
Oh, nice. He's a fun guy.
There he is. He had to put himself full page on the reverse cover.
Yeah. No, Bob's a fun guy. Good sense of humor.
Yeah.
No, and it's cool. You know, I think it was C# v3 that added anonymous types, and so this has kind of been a feature that, in many ways, I've been looking for. I have no idea what C# does now. At the time, you could only do it like within the context of a function. But usually the scenarios I always think about when I'm thinking about patterns, with records, is I want to do like a map or something, and I want to pull out 2 values, not just one. And you're like, oh, you do this hack and you put it in a list or you put it in a map, and then you lose type information, and it's super nice now. Like my favorite refrain about the whole record feature was that if we had records, we would have never shipped map entry. Like
right, yeah,
not exist in a record world.
And what did you ever see? I mean, someone was talking to me about some of this stuff. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We had a few questions around this. It's kind of like there's some certain things in the language, not necessarily the language, but maybe the Dart SDK that are now sort of that time when it's like these don't make sense anymore. So are they like? I don't know what the deprecation strategy actually is for the Dart side of things. Like,
I mean, if you look through the changelog just for remove, actually, Dart-lang/SDK. I feel like often what my the changelog is always the source of truth. Oh yeah, so just load up, the.
You have a link, I can share it if it's.
Let me just chat it. That's probably the best way to do it, as opposed to me humming and hawing, right?
You can private chat. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So they've done a great job. So you see a list of a whole bunch of remove stuff. This is already landed. So if you're at main master,
feel free to share your screen if you want. Feel free to share the tab or whatever. If you want to share the tab and sort of bring something up. If not, I can do it as well.
I'll let you do it. There's a lot of stuff there. I don't know if it'll be at all interesting to kind of scan through everything, but you'll see the. So it's very important to keep in mind. It's latest first. So 3.0 is yet to release, right? This is what the alpha we released. If you scroll down a while, you'll see 2.19. This is, again, we're talking about Dart here, not Flutter. Important to keep in mind. Yeah. So 2.19 is down there. So you see all the stuff that was changed and added. Actually, again, the most exciting thing in 2.19, naked libraries.
Okay.
Ooh. You can now put a library without a name for Dart docs and for annotations, but you don't have to give it a useless name anymore, which is great. Add support for unnamed libraries. So Thank you, Sam, for that.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
If you want to get into 219, sure. And then a lot of the things, so you'll see a lot of deprecations here in 219. So you'll start seeing some of these things no one should be using, or I'd be super surprised if anyone's using. But if you upgrade to latest Flutter and latest Dart, you'll start seeing your analyzer will start going yellow, like XYZ is deprecated. And then if you scroll up to the top here, you don't have to now, but a lot of those things marked deprecated have been removed in 3.0.
Right. Yeah, that would be handy. Disallowing the negative content length headers. That would definitely be handy.
Yeah, is it
I can see that being a problem.
Actually, and these silly little things like file system exception now has subtypes, so you can actually do type tests for not found versus other things. Then of course isolate.run was super.
Oh yeah, I saw the article on that. Yeah. So I mean, this is am I right? From what I understand, this is basically the same as Flutter's compute. That kind of like you pass it a function and it will run it in an isolate.
If I remember correctly, I'd have to go check to be sure.
Compute now uses run. Compute uses run.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
The feature that was in Flutter is now just desugars to this, so it's available everywhere, not just within Flutter.
Right. It looks really cool. I was playing with it yesterday. It's pretty hot.
If you see, package.js, this is stuff that I worked on with Sigurd. Actually, I didn't do any work here. I just talked to him and made sure things were documented. So this is the new some new features for how you interact with JavaScript. They'll give you smaller JavaScript code, faster JavaScript code, and code that will be compatible with WASM. So you'll need, if you, I don't think I'm going to tell people how to, I'll let people figure out how to run WASM. It's actually pretty straightforward. We're not quite ready for people to try it out, so I'm probably going to keep things slightly obfuscated for a little while. But if you try to run a lot of existing code with WASM, some of it will blow up because you use sync star. I can get into that, a Dart language feature that I love, but many people find obscure. And the other thing is if you're importing code that does not use this new static interrupt model. So I have some stuff coming out, some documentation I'm working with some great people on. But this will be required for people to use WebAssembly. If you don't use WebAssembly and just JavaScript, it's faster. It's smaller, faster.
Lots and lots of linked updates, which is always good. Yep. Hub as well. Yeah, awesome. So this link is in the chat. If anyone wants to go through in detail, they can. I'm very curious definitely about the Dart 3. I need to really give that a go.
If you look, it's lots of removes.
Yeah, wow.
Right. So that's interesting. So use deferred as instead of instead of the class. Yeah.
Real quick, I guess they're not watching the chat. Who is here from Somnio? I want to get them a link to come on.
They might actually. I think the guys are actually at the event, right?
I know it. I know some of them are. I'm just wondering if they're watching from Nairobi or if somebody's still in Uruguay right now.
Hey, minute. I hear we have someone else, and look, there's a Matt.
Everybody.
You know, I also happen to know that we've got a Rodrigo coming as well. The man who created the thing that I like to call Crash the Dash.
I just finished the Flutter Forward event. I was watching, and then I had a meeting that I had to jump to in the middle, and then I just came out of the meeting and finished it up. And real quick, I am so hyped for some of the announcements. Oh my gosh! So web embeds are huge. Oh my gosh, we needed that at a previous gig I worked at. That is massive. That is just totally blowing my mind, especially when they started like skewing it and doing that stuff. Oh my gosh. And then also 3D. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. And I'm also from a security perspective, really excited that we're getting native access via Dart to a lot of those platform specific items. That's huge as well, because that means I don't have to install secondary packages to get access to those things anymore, which I think security teams everywhere are going to get excited about. So anyway, sorry, I had to squee a little bit.
No,
excitement after seeing
awesome. Yeah. I'm actually I'm going to bring on a few more people that joined us.
We are actually about to be able to play tic-tac-toe.
Oh, Hollywood Squares.
and
Brady Bunch. Brady Bunch. There we go. Brady Bunch. It's a story
Brady Bunch
of a lot of developers.
Well, here, huh?
Really.
And now we'll have to pay for a new drop. Okay.
Save me.
Oh God. We're making
everybody so happy.
I think we actually got some questions coming up. So let's chuck a few questions in and we'll see where we go.
I'm cutting out then for a second. Make some more room.
Okay. All right, Ray.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go on.
Actually, I was literally gonna say I think one here was good for random. But let's just pick the first one. I think is text widget little, heavy / expensive? I mean, I've heavily used the text widget on quite a few projects, and it's surprising. I will mention though, it is kind of surprising how heavy text is to render. Most people don't realize how complicated it is. Like you actually have text shaping, which is the name given to like line breaking, and the line breaking algorithm for Unicode is just insane. It has to cover all languages and all possibilities and joins and zero join characters and possible dash characters, and just goes on forever. So it does add up. I think that the idea is to try and like with most text drawing is to try and get that done, all that stuff done near to the metal as you can, and then the result is what you're displaying on the screen. And that's why in Flutter you have paragraph builder that returns back a paragraph, and then you render the paragraph in Flutter. But then, I will briefly mention this, that text itself, when you see it on the screen, you think it's simple, right? Because you just read it. It's just your language, right? You just read it. But text itself is actually a font, and each glyph, that's each character itself being displayed. Each glyph is a shape, is a series of curves, points, lines, and so on. And that has to be rendered. That has to be either rendered by the app that assuming it can, as close to the GPU as possible, and that's like a tessellation into there's many different ways of doing this, but into some sort of texture or buffer or whatever. There's also like memory reuse and all sorts of other things. It can get heavy and expensive very quickly. So apps, you see this in fact, you'll see this on PDF readers specifically, and things like on desktop, and that is they end up rendering tiles and rendering that text out. And when you zoom in, it then scales it and then re-renders it, because to live render all those things as paths, as shapes, would be really expensive. So specifically, when you make something text really, really small, you miss the finer detail anywhere of the font, right? So anyway, I'll shut up now. But it can be pretty heavy.
I feel like from the perspective of trying to optimize your Flutter app, though, there's probably going to be lower hanging fruit than trying to optimize how you're using text widgets.
I think I'd say it does depend on how you're using them, though, right? Like if you're using 1,000 text widgets on your screen, well, the problem is you're using 1,000 text widgets, not that, do you know what I mean? Like it's not the fact that text is being rendered, it's that why you are trying to achieve it that way. And that's really kind of where it comes from, I think.
I'll give you that.
Anyone else have any opinions on text? Whilst we're here. Text is great. We can understand it. Right, move on. Okay.
All right. So we have a couple of our guests are going to need to go sooner rather than later. So we're going to want to front load things here that are for them.
Go for it, Scott.
Let's see here. Do we actually have to use the $sign to access pattern variables? And if so, why?
So no, you don't have to do. So it's not pattern variables. It's the fields in a record. And so records have two types of fields. They have you can have it. You can think about mapping to. Actually, there's maybe some future features here. We're being very careful about JavaScript. But you can think of a pattern as mapping to an arg list. And so args have named and positional arguments, right? And so same thing with patterns. You can have named things in a pattern and positional things. And so if you have named things, they will just have a name. And if you have positional things, they will use $1, $2, $3. I think there was a whole conversation about, is the first item in a record, is the first positional thing the first element
Zero
or zero
or one?
And I don't know. And I'm not sure what the current story is.
I think I saw 0 on the slides.
It's a hot mess. And I mean, not a hot
Programmers
mess.
always count from 0.
It's a complex thing. Bob and others have done some very deep thinking about it. So that will get sussed out soon. Look at the tests. Right? You know, it's a good excuse to go look at the Dart source code. So you don't have to use, and the reason we use $1, $2 is that you're unlikely to have other types that have that name. So you're less likely to have a conflict. There was a discussion about using a syntax that was not also an existing limiter for a field, and the reasons. You'll have to ask Bob for the reasons.
It's kind of interesting. Like it was misunderstood, I think, for a long time. Like people were putting dollar signs. I mean, you can just put dollar signs in variable names, right? You can put there's quite a few Unicode characters you can just use in your variable names. Not a lot of languages actually support that. Like, you know, you can have like, I think Chinese and Russian characters and things like that. You know, Cyrillic characters in the variable names in Dart. If I remember rightly, it's been a while.
I don't know.
But it's that kind of thing where dollar is just part of the identifier, and a lot of generated code at the beginning, on the early days at least, a lot of generated code would use dollar signs. Remy, doesn't your freeze use dollar sign in quite a few places to denote generated code?
Yeah, but I believe it's more of a convention. When you generate code, you tend to annotate the private generated code with $, just to say it was generated.
You can either give me credit or blame for that. I think I started that pattern with serializable, and it's kind of just leaked everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why it would be useful.
It's basically like super private. Like sometimes you generate things that exist, but you want it to be clear in the namespace of the library you're in. Anyway, we don't have to get into that. But yeah, $$ is frequently used. Or helpers, I'll use $. It's kind of like a pseudo-private kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean,
so if you have a file that's auto-generated, maybe you could just start the name of the file with $, and then
it won't cause any problems at all when you do bash completion or anything.
Well, but here's the thing, though. Okay, you turn around and you make the Flutter plugin for IntelliJ and VS Code hide that file, so even the developer doesn't see it. Now it's super private.
It's interesting you said that, because I found out the other day, I can't remember, someone on Twitter did one of those things where there's like a little animation, and it was in IntelliJ you can actually set g.dart as one of the collapsible names for a Dart file, so you don't see them, they get collapsed, like folded in the credit tree, and I was like, so helpful. And I was like, why did I know this before?
Remember, friends, don't get on tangents on tangents. So I answered the question about $sign for records.
Yeah. All right. Moving on.
Yeah. All right. Moving to something else real quick. Someone had asked about the layoffs. Look, I have not seen anybody talking about it. Let's let each person who may have been laid off talk about that when they're ready. And I don't know if anyone got that email while they were in Kenya, but that would really suck if anybody did. So, yeah, I'm just going to wait for people who were affected to talk about it themselves.
Yeah, that's the guideline that we've been given at Google. I can say kind of with my Google hat on and my Flutter Dart team hat on, it was a super sad day. There was someone I made it. If you go look, there's in Dartlang, there's /web is a repo that just created. And there's a whole bunch of fun stuff coming with Dart. Maybe after Dart 3, likely after Dart 3. But one of them is we're going to eventually move all the Dart web APIs, Dart HTML, Dart WebGL, Web Audio, IndexedDB, all those will all be in a package. So it'll be much easier for folks to help us and to iterate on those things. And they'll all use this new static interop model. So the code will be much smaller. It's great. And the person that was working on that stuff, we had meetings on Thursday. And then I found out Friday morning that this person is no longer with us, which is super sad. And this person was spectacular. Like it was, and I can honestly say that everyone kind of in the Flutterverse, everyone was surprised. Yeah,
that's the only thing that I was told by someone is that the layoffs some of the people were shockingly high up.
Well, not even that. You'd be surprised the people, my management up a couple levels didn't know who was as surprised as I was. And you'd think that those kind of people. So anyway,
you think they would have input.
There's a bunch of private stuff and there's a bunch of stuff I need to be very careful, kind of, representing my company well. I can say that, at least as far as I can tell, I tweeted about this a little bit because I think there's some speculation about this. Our team was not affected more or less than any other team at Google. There's some teams that were cut entirely or substantially. We seem to be about average. So if you're looking, I'm sure there's folks who are trying to read the tea leaves about, we were seemed to be about average.
Well, if they were going to kill Flutter, this would have been the time.
Yeah, if it was on someone's shopping block. I mean, again, forward-looking statements, speculation. Again, I wasn't privy to any of it, but I think that's all that you probably should say about that. But we were, sending out hugs and appreciation because we lost some really good people.
All righty. So I'm sure they will land in great places within the world of Flutter. Moving on, I'm sure James is talking about all this in Dart. But doesn't all this increase the complexity of the language? I thought it was meant to be easy. Well, have you tried C? It is easy.
It's all relative. I think so. Yeah. Records and patterns are a good example of. So null safety leaked into several places. We had a late keyword, question mark things, but also drastically improved inference, which actually makes a bunch of things in the language easier. Like we can infer something's nullable or not, and get rid of superfluous checks and other things. So likewise, records and patterns, like record is just another type. Like I remember asking Leaf, I was like, so I don't see anywhere in the spec where I can use a record with a type def. He's like, you shouldn't have to because it's a type. It's not. It doesn't even need to be specified. And so trying to have these features that are orthogonal and well constrained. So the pattern matching thing is interesting. And if you're not familiar with patterns, it could be interesting to kind of parse, but it's only in the context of those pattern blocks. And so if you don't use those blocks, you don't have to worry about it. So believe me, I've talked to a number of people on the team about, is the juice worth the squeeze, and realizing everything we add, is it kind of holding its own weight? And honestly, this I think is a big thing with Dart 3. And why we're pushing this Dart 3 thing is removing a lot of cruft. Just the work of having mixed mode, which is supporting both nullable and non-nullable code, null safe and non-null safe code in the same process. Like if you look at it's always a good thing. It's always interesting to look at the Dart SDK source code. We had to duplicate all the tests because we had to make sure that the VM can run non-null safe and null safe code. And so we basically have a carbon copy modulo null safety for like all the tests. So like we're going to free up so much CPU just not having to run those tests. So we're trying to balance out adding some things, but also removing things to make things just simple. Good question, though. It's something we care about a lot.
All right. Now we're taking the questions out of order. As you know, Kevin is hiding in a cleaning closet, and we don't know when they're going to discover him and kick him out of there. So we need to. We're trying to grab all the Kevin questions as fast as we can before they yank him out of that room. What do you think, what version of Dart will support static meta programming?
You know what? I just got a message from Chris Sells, not the late great, but of previous Flutter fame and still cares about Flutter. And he was just like, where's meta programming in Flutter Forward? Meta programming.
Flutter 4, yes. No.
Yes. Meta programming turns out to be crazy complicated, if you could imagine. You want it to do all the things you want it to do. You need it to be correct. You want it to be statically understandable and well scoped. And you want to make sure that if people go completely bananas with it, it doesn't destroy your developer experience at the scale of code at Google. And so it turns out like we already had a number of people on the team. Jake, especially, he's not really on social media or anything, but Jake does lots of awesome stuff, like running crazy tests and really exercising things kind of at Google scale. And we just weren't ready yet. And it's one of those features, it's one of those features that once the cat is out of the bag and people start betting on it, it's going to be next to impossible to pull it out, because it can affect so many areas of the language. And so I absolutely, I want metaprogramming really bad, but I will take a well thought out, very measured approach to metaprogramming over something that was rushed, because it'll just be a noose. But albatross, I'm trying to think, there's some analogy. An albatross, it'll be a bad thing around our neck to do it wrong.
Or if you're from New York, a concrete block.
There you go. Yeah. So we're just being super careful about it.
I just thought, I wonder if it is something we could do, something that the Dart team could do, very much like null safety when it first came out, which was do it as like a kind of half public beta. So there's people in the community that can give you feedback that would actually be applying and using static meta programs. So you kind of get ahead of time before, you kind of.
What about just
the ball well?
I mean, I know the branches are kind of linear from master to master to beta to dev to stable. What about a spike?
Probably not. I mean, we have features that are behind flags, and they can live. I mean, there are features behind flags. I mean, I think class privacy, some other things. Like we have features in Dart that are behind flags now in stable. Like you can, I don't know. I should check. Maybe you can't. Maybe we won't let you enable a flag in the stable branch. I actually should be careful there. But a feature can live on and be developed. Metaprogramming, I think, there's a flag there, and you can turn parts of it on. But hopefully we'll have a good runway where we'll validate things internally. I'm sure I'll have a branch of JSON serializable, looking at Remy there, like with freeze and other things. I am sure the second that there's something on him and I'm sure what I'll do is I'll get PRs from him saying, hey, I want to build this stuff, but I'm building on JSON serializable. Will you please, roll it forward?
Yeah, I'm dying for it to be released.
Yeah.
And on a potentially related note, as far as different things that are supported by packages here and there, but data classes.
So having concise syntax for trivial value types, field A, B, C, D, whatever, that are typed, that are not like tuple of T, S, U or whatever, or T1, T2, T3, like records get us in this, Bob's joke about data classes I love, which is data classes are 5 things, and the problem is it's a different set of 5 things for everybody you ask. And so it's like a completely it's actually 15 features, of which everyone has a different set of 5 that they want. And many of them are mutually exclusive. Nullability, or immutability, mutability, whatever. So records help with a chunk of them, which I think is good. And the second thing, so that's one, just that sea of things that people want in data classes. Records help, I think, and help relieve some pressure. So I think that's fair to say. The second thing is, back to Bob's, I think, great kind of visualization or way to think about it is, for us to release a data class, we will annoy probably the majority of people because we're not going to pick the set of stuff. And so the idea from the beginning was metaprogramming, if done well, will give everyone the data class they want. We might ship one by default. Maybe, again, it's very forward-looking. We might ship some aspect of it, but if you don't like it, you can fork it and make my better data class that does mutability the way you want it to do, or whatever. Does, deep copy, I don't know. So that is the current plan. I have also politely asked the language team, like, hey, we could have done data classes quickly, but then we said metaprogramming and we're running, it's a hard space. We thought that records and patterns were things we definitely could get in for Dart 3, and they were much safer. And so that's why the priority there was done, because we wanted to add some language features on top of the deprecations for Dart 3. But yeah, like it's tricky. Like we could have shipped something called data classes a while ago and checked that box. But the model is metaprogramming is probably a better way to do it.
What can we say? Programming is hard, right?
Yep.
And implementing programming systems is,
Now, Kevin, I don't want you to answer this the way Bob would answer the data classes pattern or the data classes description. And so you can't say it's 5 things that are different to everybody, but describe patterns.
There's no way I can describe it as well as Bob. Bob has better things to do than. Sorry, I don't have anything better to do. Come talk to you folks. No, I'm happy to help. Describe patterns. Oh gosh, I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
I tell you what. Here's the answer. Read the documentation.
There you go.
I would say go. I have a.
Read the fantastic manual.
I think I'll get it wrong. So, right now in Dart, you can do if checks. So you do if checks or else checks for the type of a thing, and then the type of the thing, you'll get a cast. It'll be within the body of the function. So I have some foo value that's object. And I go, if foo is int, and then in the block of that if statement, I now know, I have an integer, and I can call dot, is even or toString with whatever, and you have some features now. But it's very limited, right? Like I can't say, does this list have 3 elements in it, or is this a record where the first value, where the name value is a string or something? Like there's these very kind of more elaborate kind of matching you want to do, where you want a lot of the same features, which is I want to be able to do a match and inspect and interrogate the shape of a value beyond its type. So I can look at the type and also fields in that type. I know it's an int and I know it's even, therefore, cleanly in blocks. And then extract values out, maybe into a record to do other things. And so it's like if blocks plus switch statements on steroids is the way I think about it. And there are canonical examples around, looking at, circle and rectangle and their area and other things, but it's
and they're all described in this specification document, which you can go read anytime. Here's that shape circle stuff.
So that's record. Those are records, and descriptions are records. And then below is patterns. And the other really nice thing about patterns is their expressions, which means you can right there. You can return from a switch is an amazing example. Yeah. Be careful which things you highlight here, because in many cases, Bob has used examples from other languages. So, the thing you highlight might not be your code.
That reminds me of a quick story. DroidCon, I'm sorry, not DroidCon. Google I/O 2019. We all walked out of the keynote, and we're walking towards the Flutter tent. And Simon is staring at his phone while we're walking, and he starts laughing like a maniac.
Okay.
And he starts passing his phone. You remember this one?
No, we're gone.
There was the big announcement about in Android, what do they call the UI programming?
Compose. I know.
Compose. Yes. He's sitting there and he starts showing his phone around. He's showing the source code for Jetpack Compose. And in the Dart comments, the examples are still written in Dart from where they copied the Dart files before changing it over for Android.
I'm so glad that stuff my team works on is inspirational.
Yes.
And if you talk to Bob, he did such crazy deep work looking at existing implementations. Existence proofs are really important, and copy the good things and avoid the scary things.
And it's also, don't get me wrong,
but
it's my understanding that the Android team did not steal the file, that they actually worked in cooperation with some people.
I don't know
from the Flutter team, but that's what I heard.
Oh, there's Roman.
Roman.
Hey
Roman's
guys,
here.
how
Matt's
are
back.
you? I just had a massive rush of imposter syndrome just by being surrounded by so many greats in the Flutter community. So
hey,
thank you for having me,
Roman. We got this question for you, Roman. It says Flutter Forward the afterpay. I'm sure I know.
How did that get in here?
Thank you, guys.
All right. We got at least one more. I think this is kind of Kevin can be in on part of this. Somebody's asking him to reveal plans for upcoming things in Flutter that obviously he couldn't be talking about. But no, do you know of, any particular hopes to do something like impeller for Android or bring impeller to Android?
I don't know what we're talking about there yet. It's not my team. It's cool stuff to see. I'm excited about it. Yeah, like there's impeller has legs. Impeller has legs, and yeah, and I want to be careful and let people that control that code and work on it own the story there. But
well, I mean,
it's not the last time you'll hear from impeller.
Yeah, as I say, like we can see where it's going, right? So impeller is coming out for iOS friendly. That's their initial target. We saw this in previous features inside Flutter, where the team has to target one platform so they can actually iterate on the feature set. And then once they feel like it's stable enough, then it'll be worked on each different platform and brought out for all the platforms. Eventually, would be that.
Simon,
you can't just have it on one platform.
Your speculation is speculation.
I know. It's complete speculation. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't. I'm just.
It's good to keep in mind Impeller's
vision from previous things.
Right. Impeller's vision and its initial thing was dealing with a shader jank issue on iOS, and we love God bless Skia. They expect any of us running Chromium based browsers now. It's all via Skia, so they're doing great work, and we use a bunch of their text work as well. Even in the impeller world, I need to make sure. I need to be careful with these statements. Even in the impeller world, we're still using big chunks of Skia. I think mostly in the tech stack. I think so.
I remember the very first version was literally just class wrappers around Skia because obviously you want to continue to work and then you replace individual pieces as you go.
So impeller's initial thrust was around dealing with the iOS jank issue, and it's done spectacularly as far as I can tell. And then we'll see where the future holds. Obviously, the 3D stuff is super exciting. I wanted to close out real quick. I do need to take off.
Yeah.
We're super excited about the web stuff we showed today. There are a couple new things on the web in 3.7, but most of the things that were discussed are all forward-looking, if people are curious. So the size benefits, if you try out main master today, take the counter app or whatever, do it before and after. You'll see a pretty big win. We have now font. We basically tree shake the fonts for icon fonts, which is like saves a megabyte right off the bat. And then we have things coming very soon. We did a bunch of work over the course of the year. People are like, what's going on with Flutter Web? Lots of discussion. Really hard things. Like we've been relying on the Skia team to build Canvas Kit for us. We have now taken over building our own Canvas Kit and including only what we need. So we have the whole tool chain and had to get all that working to pick and choose the bits of Skia that we use to get the WASM compilation working locally. So this is not Flutter WASM. This is just the WASM compilation needed for Canvas Kit. And then running binarian over it, which is the optimizer, so that now we can package up just the bits we need for Canvas Kit. We cut in half, basically, the load time for the counter app. And so I think that's the biggest thing by far there's lots of people who try out Flutter Web and try to do their blog in it and then have complaints about SEO, which that's a separate conversation. But for those that are betting their companies on Flutter Web and building app experiences, load time was one of the biggest issues. So we're very excited to say we're aiming at cutting it in half, the load time.
I have to say, Kevin, before you go, that I think everyone on this call really appreciate your team's efforts on doing all this. I mean, we know it's super complicated. It takes a lot of effort, and I know everyone watching does as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And then WASM, I should have. I'm not giving instructions out today, but the goal is, things might come up in the spring, and so we'll be excited for people to try out the WASM stuff. And then the shader stuff also works in master now. So if you take a shader demo that works on Mac and on master, try it on the web. You should get shaders on the web too, which is there's even crazier things than that Tim showed today. I didn't have time to get them all working, but it's going to add a whole new dimension. And again, speaking of kind of our approach to building experiences using the canvas, using GL and not using the DOM, it really highlights like why we picked this path, the flexibility. I need to learn GLSL now to write shader language. It's hard to debug. Holy cow! Maybe we could do something there. But it's super cool, and to have it work on the web is super fun. So I'm KevMoo on Twitter. Come find me. I would still love to talk to folks. If you're building a business building on Flutter Web, send me a DM on Twitter. I'd love to chat with you. And happy Flutter Forward, folks. Thank you all. Thank you all for supporting the community. It's great.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Kevin. Bye for now. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Like, I mean,
Right. So I guess we'll get to some more questions. I think that's it. I'm just going to go straight down the list. What is the best way to using riverpod 2 to fetch data from 2 different APIs and combine the result into one model, and also add additional properties and then update those after? Very specific question. I do like it. I mean, we have the creator of riverpod 2 right here on the call, Remy. This is a perfect person to answer this. Throw it your way. I mean,
I'm sorry, but I saw this question before, but it's a bit unclear to me to know because there's no technical constraints in this question, so you could technically do so many different things. It's hard to know.
You got fetch. What's the best way in using riverpod 2 to fetch data from different? You fetch data from different APIs without riverpod 2, right? That can just be HTTP, whatever your API is, right? Then the two are combined together. Now you can have 2 separate asynchronous operations, futures, right? And is there a future provider kind of type in riverpod that they could use?
Yeah.
Right. And then they can have one like I'm putting words in here because I don't know riverpod that well. So, and then I guess a state provider could then depend on the results of those 2 future providers, right?
Yes.
And that's one way of doing it. And the other one is obviously you could just do like a stream provider and have the 2 futures go into a stream RX-Dart stream. What's it called? Latest
you probably shouldn't do that, but yeah, sure. You could.
There's a ton of ways you can do these kind of things, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Additional property and updaters, yeah. So you can just add the additional properties inside your state changing function, your update function. So.
But I wanted to chime in. Yeah, you and again, kudos to Remy for being an amazing developer. And where do I send you my paycheck? Because I owe my career to you almost. Build so many applications with Provider and now riverpod. So I wanted to chime in on that same one. So to the question, it's not precisely a riverpod thing. Like Simon just mentioned, you could do like a future.wait, wait for a couple of asynchronous API calls, and just wrap it inside your provider or your service. And then, but this is not like a precise riverpod thing, unless I'm not overstepping. Maybe there's something like a unique feature that actually simplifies that and can combine a couple of, let's say, incoming requests and combine it in a single call. But you could do that without riverpod.
I mean, that's what I mentioned with the lack of constraints in this question is, for example, the answer might change depending on the caching constraints you have for your features. Maybe you want to cache one API request longer than another one and all those things. And maybe when a variable change, you want to refetch one thing but not the other one. So there are different constraints. Generally, you may want to split those 2 requests into 2 separate feature provider, and then maybe potentially make a third provider to combine both. You may not need to do that if you don't need it, depending on your constraints.
My question is what the APIs are coming from, because the right answer, depending on the situation, is to, if you've got access to the backend team writing these APIs, have them write you an endpoint that just combines the information before you get it. Yeah. That's now I recognize that that's not always the right solution. That might not be possible if you're dealing with third parties or whatnot, but if it's like a corporate environment, have them write you an API endpoint that does this. There's no reason the client side should be sorting all this data and put it together.
And that volleyball just got batted back to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. You could walk
back in. Your problem.
You could walk to
front
their
end.
desk
No,
say,
give it back to back
the
end.
API. Yeah, you just walk to their desk and say, "Can you rewrite the API instead?" Yeah.
Yep.
I would go for
5 minutes. Right. Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Another one. ChangeNotifierProvider is only restricted to mutable state and StateNotifier for only immutable. Is it only restricted?
I mean, I guess technically no, but more realistically, it's more about what's recommended for those classes and how they're typically used. Like generally, StateNotifier tries to push you to use immutable state. And so if you want to use mutable state in riverpod or provider, because technically you can use that in provider too, you would instead use ChangeNotifier. And technically, I've had this discussion not that long ago. You could use both for both, but I mean, you know, officially, what you described is correct.
Straight from the horse's mouth, as they say. There you go. I'm looking for an idea to build my varsity final year project and Google solution challenge with Flutter. That's not really a question.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Go for it.
Actually, it is though.
Made a to-do list app, so make a to-do list app. That's my recommendation.
So they are asking for ideas. So one of the things that I have found is to go. What is it? Binance or Behance? BEHANCE. What are some of the other ones, guys? Come on, I can't.
Dribble.
Dribble with three B's. Yeah. There's also
don't rip these things off. Just use them for inspiration.
Also, you can always get permission as well, right? Speak to the authors, right? You know.
True.
Does Pinterest exist still? Yeah, because you could do Dribble, Pinterest. Does it exist yet? I mean,
yeah. Pinterest. I'm trying. There was another one that it's just completely gone from my head.
I remember you sent one. Simon.
No, there was. I used to have all these in. Oh wow! I was away long enough that there are 45 messages waiting.
It's gone. Whatever it was, it's gone. Well, if we remember, okay. But yeah, let's crack on.
By the way, and I was listening to something. Roman was talking about sending his paycheck. I know that there are there's some Patreon. There are Patreon things to help support developers, but the thing is, when a package gets to be as big as Provider or riverpod, shouldn't we start calling it a tithe? Just send 10% of our paycheck. You know, like you send it to the Catholic Church.
Remember, get all those video checks in. It's like, yeah.
Honestly,
I'm gonna laugh, but sure.
I'm pretty sure Remy won't be against that, right? Yeah.
I mean, I don't quite understand what you're talking about, but I don't mind.
No, that's when you give 10% of your paycheck to the church. we give it to riverpod.
It's the riverpod tax.
There you go. All right. What's next?
Before we get to another, since you mentioned it, yes, we do have a Flutter community Patreon, and it helps support this stream, the cost of running the stream, as well as other services, including the new Mastodon server, other things. So yeah, please contribute.
And
if you can.
Not to beg too obviously, but I looked at the bank account the other day, and all the bills came in for the year at one time. So in December, it looked just fine, and now I'm like scared.
Right. So yeah, don't forget, get your questions in the chat with a queue in front of them, and we'll get them added to the list. Let's crack on with a few more. Before we get on with some more questions, I want to know. So we have some few new people join us. Matthew, so you've explained what you liked about it. Sorry, Roman, what was your favorite thing about the announcements today? What was the big thing that caught your eye that you're most excited about?
I think I just saw the question popped up, but I like the 3D capabilities of Flutter. Now we don't depend on there it is. So why don't we address that? So I saw the fact that, again, it definitely now there's native support for 3D. Now I'm able to build my next Fortnite in Flutter. But I definitely like the fact that now there's a lot more improvements. There's better performance in it. I saw how the team definitely. I saw a couple of comments in the community a little bit spread it, like they said, "Oh, Flutter's trying to become like this whole thing. It may be heading down the Java route," and I'm like, "No, that's not it. You definitely want this new features being incorporated into the framework to kind of cater like a broader audience. It's not like it's gonna become like the single thing and then that's gonna ruin it." I think that's one of the things that I caught from the community. But my one exciting thing was that. Of course, I know that you will be happy with this also, Simon, their RISC-V support. There was that.
Do you mean
Thank you. That's what it is. Yes. I was like, Simon, you are like ahead of your time. Exactly. There it is.
Yep.
I'm like, Simon.
Mine hasn't arrived yet. I've got a mango pie in the mail, but it didn't get here yet.
But I immediately thought of Simon when I saw that, and of course that one of my applications got highlighted. So thank you to the Flutter team for that shout out. But yes, that's what it was.
We were over on Very's stream and they were asking what the high points were, and I brought that one up, and it was like nobody understood what RISC-V meant or what its significance was, and then I explained it and I pointed out, you remember Roman's name tag? And I said, you can make it touch screen and have your name tag as a game, so people will definitely remember who you are, or you can put it on your refrigerator.
I tell you, Roman, I love your name tag so much. Like, honestly, when Simon showed me that, because I missed it, I'm not on Twitter as much as I used to be, so I missed it. And Simon showed it to me, and my mind, you know, the exploding head emoji, that was me. Like, it literally was like, oh my God. Like, the possibilities here are insane. Oh my God, that is such a great piece of work.
Let's part that, but let me just say that there's some future in that space coming. Let's park.
And it's
and the thing is, a lot more coming there. Yeah, thank you.
We're working on one thing, but there are so many. Imagine, I mean, like the first thing, of course, would be like a Google Nest Hub clone. You could make your own, right, to do anything with it. But what else could you do?
Like, these are things that we've always been able to do. Like we've had ARM support. It works on mobile phones, right? And ARM embedded devices. There are time it doesn't. Like, you can get these things, but it's cost prohibitive. And and the other side of this is something that came up during the pandemic was the buyout, possibly, of ARM by NVIDIA. And at that point, suddenly the market went, "Oh crap! We've got all our eggs in one basket. What are we going to do if this happens?" And China now owns ARM, right? And that's a political thing. Don't really care, to be honest. But the point here is that with RISC-V, it opens the playing field, because the RISC-V standards are completely open, meaning that any manufacturer can go, if they have the fab time, then go get that core made and work on those things. And it just opens up the entire pipeline now to a lot of sort of a wider developer audience, and brings the prices down, right? So we're now seeing like this, for example, is like £5. Like, there's just no way you could get this performance. This is like 600 megahertz or something ridiculous. It's like you just couldn't get that for that sort of price range. It just wouldn't happen with ARM. So I think there's a definite future with RISC.
Yeah, and that's and it's but there is one thing I do want to point out, Simon. You were saying that we've been able to do this stuff for a long time, and that's true. But there's a difference between being able to do it and realizing what you can do with it. And I think that light bulb is starting to go on over people's heads, and they're realizing just how vast the possibilities really are.
So here's the thing. Open standards and open source has contributed insane amounts to the economy and towards tech development as a whole. So now we have an open standard and we've got an open source product, Flutter, that can run on top of it. And that is going to make it very attractive for an entirely new classification of startups to be able to come in and say, oh, there's this new product that I can develop, and there's these tools that are readily available, and there's hardware that's inexpensive because the open standard of RISC-V means it's very cheap to produce. So it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for people who see this and are willing to take that next step. And I think that, everything from like, the medical field to everything, Internet of Things devices, it's going to open up a whole boatload of possibilities there in all kinds of industries that we just can't see right now. And I think that is probably the most underappreciated and biggest announcement from Flutter Forward.
Yeah. It went right past a lot of people because they don't understand what the acronym means.
I just actually, what I didn't see, maybe I missed it because I was preparing for the stream, but just to let everyone know, there is a bunch of community talks that have that have gone onto a playlist. I'll share it at the end. Well, I'll put it in the chat now, but if you disappear from this chat and go watch the playlist, I'm not going to forgive you. But there's a playlist that's got in the chat.
We won't answer your questions.
Yeah, there's all the Flutter Forward community videos that have been made by lots of different members in there, as well as the Flutter team themselves, and you'll see a bunch of them. I think they're in that playlist. Have they filled out the playlist? I'm not sure if they have.
Okay, and while Simon's looking for that, I do want to point something out. Please think about your questions before you ask them. Questions like, my thing doesn't work on this. Why? How are we supposed to know? Another question, Flutter interacting with some piece of hardware, any piece of hardware. Flutter interacting with the IMU, the GPS, the camera, whatever. That is the job of the operating system. Flutter is a UI toolkit. We're supposed to ask the operating system. Okay. Flutter SEO questions. SEO, make your Flutter is for web apps, not for websites. Put in your web app into your web page, do your SEO on your web page. If you're trying to make the website with Flutter, you may as well be trying to pound a nail with a screwdriver. I mean, yes, you can hold the handle and go like that, but it's not a good way to put a nail in. It's not going to work very well. And another couple is, can you, how do you do this thing with Flutter that checks what's going on in the other part of the operating system? How would you do it with any other program? We don't know. That's not part of Flutter. So, and I think I just eliminated half the questions.
Also,
what state management solution should you use? Remy's here. The answer is riverpod. Move on. No.
So yeah, this was actually one of the talks that you'll see in that playlist, which is Tiny Flutter, Future of Data, Flutter on Small Doors, which actually goes around risk, talking about risk. This is a new talk. So this goes into more detail about the what the type of things you can. It's not going to load, lucky me, but yeah, you can go find that in that playlist. It's by Maxim Lin, great GDE for the community. All right, let's move on. What's the so I'm gonna say Renan, but it's not Renan. It's Henan, isn't it? I always say it wrong. Right? Henan. Yep. Was it me, or did I just see? I saw some of your tweets mentioned in the announcement of 3.7. That's cool, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was for when they were featuring the future of impeller, and they demonstrated some of the tutorials we made, examples we made around shaders, pixel shaders, and it was one. The leftmost was mine. The middle and the right ones.
Did I miss that in the slides? It was actually in the slides of the announcement.
Yeah. So in the same slide, we had three, and first was mine, and the other ones were Joachim's. And so it's basically some experiments we made with usage of pixel shaders. And mine was integrated to the layout of Flutter. So it was an example around some letters that are shining. So it's a shader that takes luminance of each pixel and creates like a shining effect. And it's fully integrated to the Flutter layout, so you can combine that with a scrollable. So when we scroll, the direction of the light beam changes. So yeah, it was just an example. And I was really, really happy to see that in the stream.
Cool. Congratulations.
That's amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool.
All right.
Let's get through some questions and see what we got. And
this one, maybe, why does Google Auth not work well in web, or not work in WebView? We are missing some WebView support, or no? No. We've used Google Auth for URL.
I can tell you probably why this isn't working. I have a guess, and that is probably more about the security of your WebView. So an example of this is if your web page that you're loading in your WebView is from the local file system, it's not HTTPS, and that will require it to probably not pass the security standards that are required to make connections out. When Google Auth makes connection, when the client library makes connections to the server, it uses HSTS, which is and the HSTS requirements specify that the source also has to be secure. This secures your credentials. So it could be something along those lines, at a guess. But there should be no reason why it shouldn't specifically work in a web view, but it could be how you're loading your content in your web view and then loading Google Auth.
Yeah, no, because we've done it at work.
To be honest, why didn't you, another way you can actually do this is have your web view. I'm assuming this is a Flutter app running a web view. You can have your web view call out the JavaScript to the Flutter app, and then the Flutter app can just use its Dart code and the client library for Google Auth and actually do it nicely with the device, which means you get your saved credentials, you get all kinds of other bonuses. Whenever they're logged into the devices, they can press a button, it does it. And then the result of those Google Auth credentials can be sent back over JavaScript to the web view. So that's the way you should probably integrate that.
Cool. All right. Here's an oldie but goodie that we haven't seen in a while. How can I start contributing? The standard canned answer to this, and it's true, only I'm going to phrase it a little bit differently. What you should do is look around at the comments about things that you understand and find some part of the documentation comments that make you turn your head sideways and go, what? Then fork the SDK, rewrite that in a way that is understandable, and push it. And congratulations, you're contributing. But yeah, documentation's a big one.
Documentation is a really nice one to get going with. There's always they can just be sort of use cases that you're thinking of that need some clear understanding, or maybe some better examples, or conversely, there might be some sort of functional feature that you need that you think everyone else should need. And in those situations, yeah, you raise an issue ticket, you start a conversation, and then you can then submit a PR, you raise it to the issue. And
don't forget though, if you're just getting started with contributing, like 95% of all the things you're going to push are going to require passing tests, which always aggravates everyone to death the first few times they have to deal with it. If you're doing your PRs on comments, you don't have to deal with that.
I also mentioned
you get off the hook.
You can join the official Discord and speak to the members in their appropriate channels. Like there's a hackers framework channel, there's a plugins channel, there's all these different channels, and you can ask your question and saying, "Oh, do you need this? Is this something you've spoken about? Is there, and get some feedback." And if they say, "Oh, that sounds interesting, we could do with that. Yes, please contribute that." Then you can then go off and work on that feature.
Now, one thing to someone who's new to that Discord, and maybe you and Remy can explain a little bit better because you spend, I imagine, Remy, you're probably in there quite a bit in the hackers channels. When you see hackers, that's not exactly somewhere to just go in and ask your questions, right? Hackers has a specific meaning.
Yeah, I mean, they're just channels about the specific topics, right? The idea is that if you're working on something, you're working on that specific topic. I don't know. If
it was my understanding the hackers channels were for people working on it.
Yeah,
not just for general questions about it.
Yeah, but that's the point. So if you're contributing, you're working on the project, right? You're not going in and saying, "Please help me. I don't know how list view works. Can you help me with my list view?" Because that's just not going to happen, right? And that's going to get you banned probably or something.
There's a help channel for that. Or it's actually a help forum thing. But yeah.
There's also, and just to be clear, we talk about this and we have obviously the Humpday Q&A, but there's also flutter.dev/community. You can go get the Reddit, the Discord, there's tons, right? Mm-hmm. You go find whatever your platform is and you'll find a link from there to the community at large. Anyway, let's more questions.
Let's see here. More questions. Sorry, I was reading Android's message.
I just picked the next one. I'm making an app related to state guessing game in Flutter. I need to use many SVGs for this, but the shader jank when using them in Android and iOS, how can I fix the rendering issue?
And I believe he's talking about states as in the Spanish word estados, or 50 states in the United States.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna suggest a few things. One, how big are your SVGs? So if you've taken the SVG shapes of the states, let's say American states in that sense, right? The different states, and those are highly detailed SVGs, you're going to have like 1,000 points to 1 pixel of your screen, which yes, it's going to try and render that, and it's going to converge them all down on one point, and it's going to look no different. So what you probably want to do is simplify your SVGs. I don't know the details, but you can definitely tell if you open up an SVG in a text. You can see how complicated it is. It's a text file, by the way, if you want to go look. It's an XML format. But yeah, you've seen shaded. It's not shaded jank, but drawing any number of there's actually I noticed this actually recently. I think it might have got better with the latest release, but drawing lots of paths. I've seen some jank recently. Maybe there's an improvement, but yeah, you can also use repaint boundaries. I don't. It depends on how you're rendering these things and what you're trying to render. So if each state, let's say, is a widget, then those could be wrapped in repaint boundaries. So when you repaint, let's say you hover it over and you change the color of the state, I don't know, then it doesn't repaint all the rest of them, and maybe that can also improve your performance. But I think just simplifying your SVGs will get you a long way, and you can do that. Inkscape has a simplification. You can highlight the shape and do like simplifying it.
And don't forget SVG cleaner.
Yep. Yeah. And there's actually
now you can rasterize it, right? So you can get the image from the picture.
Yeah. I mean, you can do. Yeah. See, that's another thing, right? So you can essentially export your SVGs as PNGs, right? But you need to export them in 1x, 2x, and 3x at least. And there's a whole section of flutter.dev about having resources with multiple densities that you should cover if you're going to.
I'm talking in real time, like in
real time.
Yeah, because you are getting the
come
picture.
Come on. Sure. Anyone can just go ahead and do that. Why not?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that SVG was taking care of the cache part.
Oh, it does. It caches them. So by the way, Flutter SVG caches them in a picture, which is a display list of sorts to the GPU, which does improve performance to a certain degree, but it also it's not rasterized, and that's where repaint boundary comes in. Repaint boundary can keep the rasterization. All right.
Okay. Before we and actually, Henan.
Oh, me.
You made a good point about using paths for one, and also there is we have some other special guests who are going to be coming on the stream. I don't know about.
I hope you can.
Hey, folks.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hello. Oh my God, Puff, you're everywhere.
Live from Flutter Forward, and I have some royalty here. I have Kate and Puff, and they've been working all day long, so I've got to get them out of here, but they wanted to say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there, everyone. We really hope you enjoyed Flutter Forwards.
So happy to see you all.
Hey, Kate, how's the new kitchen?
Oh, well, the new kitchen is getting old at this point, but how about Flutter Forward? Did anyone was there anything in particular that stood out?
Oh, all kinds of stuff.
We've just been discussing the impeller 3D stuff, obviously the dark language changes to the patterns and records.
Web embeds are huge for me.
The RISC thing went right past a lot of people who didn't understand what it was, but for those of us who understood what it was, we're turning cartwheels. I can't wait to be making all kind of silly little devices, something to stick on the refrigerator.
Yeah, what that means for the It's a Widgets website.
I love. Yeah, I was DMing Simon during the embedded element, saying this is amazing. It's like it's. So anyway, I promised them they could leave. I just wanted them to be able to say hello.
So glad to be invited. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It's been wonderful. I think we might be grabbing some food. Hold on, what was that?
I said I've got one question for Kate. What happened to your hand?
You know what?
I see you're holding off the screen. I was like, it's fine. I'm just asking.
Yes, I tried to hide it through most of Ask Flutter, but over the Christmas holiday, we had some pretty gnarly ice and snow in Nashville, Tennessee, in the U.S., and I went out to spread some ice melt, and the ice won. I ended up falling and breaking my wrist, but thankfully it wasn't enough.
Oh, no.
We've been making do.
Feel better.
She's been doing great. Hey, I'm going to steal Kate from all of you now because we are so ready for some food.
Yes.
Good seeing you. Have a great Humpday
point
Q&A.
out one thing real quick. Anybody who wants to meet Puff can find him almost anywhere. Puff is everywhere.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll be at the DevFest soon, Scott.
Yep.
All right, what's coming next? I've got a whole list of guests here for you.
Oh, very great. Can we?
So,
can we
what's coming over?
Maybe.
I don't think there's a shortage of
Okay.
Simon, can we change this format and make them bigger?
Yes, I can see if I can do that. 1 second. I've just had to mute you there for a second, Daniel. Danielle, sorry. Hang on. Hang on. Let's see if I can. Oh no, that's not right. What are you doing? Stop clicking on things. This isn't working. Hang on. Let's try this again. This one, and then this one.
There
you go. You need to unmute yourselves. I cannot unmute you. Sorry. Oh, maybe I can. Yeah. Apparently, I can unmute you.
We should not be muted.
No, you're good.
Mike.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right, Mike.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. You might know me on Twitter as ReadMike. I've been doing a lot of tweets about teaming and material tree. That has been going on for quite a while now. And so after the last Flutter Vikings, when they launched Flutter 3.3, a lot of people asked me, is material tree ready now? Can we use it in Flutter in production? And I said, no, not quite yet. But now, go for it. It's really there now. You can really use it. And it's actually quite nice to use it. So it really makes teaming spectacularly much easier than it was before, because you actually get pretty teams out of the box.
So that is something that was definitely announced during the keynote. So that's amazing. Yeah.
And there's a lot of new widgets that are really, really nice to use, and like the menu bar if you build it for desktop. So that one we should definitely try out. It's really nice.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if anybody has any questions about material teaming, and I can stick around for a while and pop in and maybe help out on them if you want.
That'd be wonderful. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one if no one else does. I noticed in the pre-show that the move to Material 3 is defined as a breaking change. Like, it is going to be a breaking change. In terms of like levels of breaking, are we looking at like null safety levels of breaking, or like how big of a breaking change do you think this is going to be?
No, the breaking changes are quite small. I mean, they are style breaking. Things start to look completely different. So you have to call it breaking in that sense, but they won't break your app. And the parts that are breaking, you really have to opt in and code in there yourself. I mean, you have to change a few widgets that didn't exist before, maybe use a few new widgets.
Well, if you don't turn on Material 3, does it make any changes?
No, nothing at all.
So it's not really a breaking change.
It's not breaking at all. You have to opt in on Material 3 to begin with, and then you get a new style. But if you have a fixed theme there, you won't even get that then. So it's, it doesn't really break a whole lot of things, but it brings a whole slew of new things that you need to be ready for in your teaming and in your color scheme. And the color scheme is quite complex, but it comes with a really nice one out of the box, and you can always use color scheme from seed to make one quite easily. And I won't put any plug into my package now. So
please, please. The rules are they can't promote, we can.
Okay, we can. I'm known for having a package that helps a lot with teaming, and it comes with a web tool called Teams Playground as well. So Flex Color Scheme is the package. It is ready for Flutter 3.7, but only as a dev release. I still want to do some fine tuning and test it and quality assure it a bit more. So, but you can if you use the dev.2, the Flex Color Scheme 7 dev.2, that one is available as built on Flutter 3.7 stable, and it all works already. So.
Well, I know you have some traveling coming up. When do you think you'll get to making this actually release?
Yeah, I think probably during next week I'll make a stable release out of it. Yeah, I just need to ensure that everything is up to spec.
That's amazing. All right, great. Well, and Mike's going to be here. If you have more questions, please bring them in. I can bring anybody on camera I need to. So if you have questions for anybody, except for Kate and Puff have left. I promised them that if they came on, they could leave quickly.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, thank you, Mike.
Material 3, so thanks so much.
If you So come on, Roa.
Yep.
Here.
I'm bringing on Roa here. Have you been on Humpday before?
No, this is my first
This
time.
is her debut for, although she's a friend of the show for sure.
Yeah, I follow you every week, so.
Yeah. So what was your favorite part of so far of
Okay, I need to
Flutter Forward?
I'm a bit biased, but like my most favorite part was the embedded part of the whole keynote, but like my second favorite was the mention of widget book.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Who, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot. Who do you work for?
Widget book. so no, but it's,
come on, that's right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're bringing my chair without me.
I'm sorry, you need to come with it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so the part where they mentioned widget book, which was like just a glimpse of what is really offered by widget book, but yeah.
Absolutely so.
I wish it was like, it showed more of the potential that could be
So
shown
if people have questions about widget book, they can bring them in?
Yep.
Awesome,
Definitely.
That's great.
Yep, I'm here.
Well, let's bring Ezra in now.
Okay, right, get up.
And actually probably hold the microphone, I would think.
All right.
Well, no, it's okay.
It's gonna fit here.
All right, we have Ezra here. You may remember her. She co-hosted with me back during the Flutter Apprentice book days, and
Yes.
she's also very active in the community.
Thank you.
And what was your favorite part of?
Actually, it's same, like the embedded part. I love that. The WebAssembly, it's promising a lot. And actually, when I first see that, I just thought about maybe we can, I'm working for an application called Vital. We have a social media application. So in that part, what I thought is we can basically build it in the web. People can just go scroll through. And, we can just basically give them a live demo in the application. So it's actually promising a lot. And also, I love the part for the thing, like when you have the 3D rendering like that, it's also promising a lot for the games, especially. So I really, really would love to try it more.
Did you all see the big cube of dashes running?
And it just happened in minutes.
Yeah. And did you catch the total flex they did on how old of an iPhone it was? It was a complete flex.
I think it was right.
Yes.
It was like a casual conversation.
Yeah, but
This is
iPhone
what
6, running it in iPhone 6, totally cool.
Yeah,
So.
very cool.
All right, so if you have any questions for Ezra, of course, bring them in. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's a lot of people in the West don't understand how huge it is in Africa and other parts of the world that it can run on hardware that is that old, because sometimes a used phone will cost more than a used car. People cannot upgrade their phones very often in a lot of part of the world.
I
And the
used to
most
work
like
for a sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the most complained thing about like Flutter is about iOS jank, and that was like amazing to demonstrate that even a very old phone can demonstrate this demo very perfectly, very smoothly.
Your latest improvement, it's a flex.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And one of the amazing things that happened here, which is probably obvious to everybody who's watching, but just to make it really clear, is we've met so many developers from from Kenya, from Nigeria, from South Africa, all over Africa. And it's been amazing to see the community together here, and they're all so excited about Flutter. So that's really cool.
They are doing a lot of things in Flutter, and I was also thinking that I'm gonna meet with Simon face to face.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, we're sad, Simon. Yeah.
You were with us in spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Martin, why don't you come join us?
Yeah, thanks. I'll give my space.
I can also get
Yep. Have a seat here.
Thank you.
You all know Martin, of course. So Martin, what was your favorite part so far of Flutter Forward?
I was talking with Sally as well, who helped set everything up. That one thing that I find amazing is how Flutter team even thinks about their product roadmap. They are not thinking about how can they do something better. They are thinking about how does the future look like, and what future we want to create. It's like future is going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful apps all over the internet, all over your phone, all over the screens, and
written in Flutter.
Yes, written in Flutter, and then it's like, okay, what can we do to make that future happen? So I think that was huge reality check for me as well, and inspiring to think like, rather to think like, okay, what can we do today, but like, what will the future look like, and like, how can we contribute to that? So that was cool.
Absolutely, that is quite amazing.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And Martin's gonna be here to answer questions, just like Mike and Roa and Ezra. So I've got one more guest I want to bring in now, which is Solly, which you all know him, of course, too. He was on with me last week, too.
I have to say,
the old meme used to be, can we get Doom to run on a toaster? And now I feel like that's
oh my God, we can act. Yes,
Flutter to run on a toaster, and the answer is yes. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
That's amazing. Yes, we could get Doom to run on a toaster.
It's amazing the things they did. What's the chipset we care about, Simon? When we're looking at our little project, the RISC chipset.
RISC-V. Yeah,
right, RISC-V.
Yeah, the RISC-V. Well, I mean, there's plenty of chipsets that run RISC-V now, so we get a pick and choose. But I think the one we're concentrating on is the Buffalo Labs 808. So it's the BL808, which is the product.
Right, and so I was talking with Simon about doing stuff on that, and so of course they announced that out, now is at least advanced for it. So that was an amazing thing too. And I have Solly here, of course. But Solly's the one that set everything up for us, so thank you, Solly.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm really happy to build up the stage for everyone, because I would like everyone to show what they were excited about during the event. So I'm really lucky to give a chance to people to talk about it. And I'm also angry with Simon for not being here, but I will talk to him face to face in London.
And I am angry with Solly for breaking my heart.
Okay, I have one more. I have one more surprise guest. One more surprise guest. The most popular person.
Wait, 1 second, everyone. Hi. Okay, first of all, Simon, you missed a lot. I'm so sorry you missed this, and Scott, you too. I wish you were here, and everyone. But it was so fun seeing everyone here in person.
Of course.
Yeah, everyone. So it was so fun. But I hope everyone is just enjoying the live stream as well. I hope we all get to meet together one day in person.
Of course.
Yep.
Absolutely. Of course. So I don't know if it was broadcasting, but before the keynote started, when they were before the Q&A started, when they were showing stuff on the screen, the first screen of that was all people with pictures with selfies with Nilay. It was like, yeah.
But I really hope I get to meet everyone again someday. But I just wanted to say hi. I was not in the agenda, but
you're always in the agenda. You're every agenda.
I know. Oh my goodness. I love everyone so much. Thank you.
We're gonna make Nilay the MC of our next event.
Can you ask Nilay where did she get? How can she get us a couple of those T-shirts that she's wearing? I love the Flutter.
She's already gone.
She's already gone party.
I'm sorry. She's along with Kate and Puff, and they need to eat. They've been working. Trust me, they've been working so hard for many days, not just today. Many days. So yeah, well, of course, months at that. But yeah, but I mean, from wake up to go to bed for days now.
I guess we want to call out also the first day we got here, we saw the layoff emails and it's all messed up. So we're fine. We're all good. Other things.
They've had problems. Yeah, we've had the Google issues. They've been going through that. So anyway, but so
but their spirit is up. Everyone's excited, and
yeah, of course, but
they're really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, Solly, we were talking when when we had the opportunity to have Nilay for a second.
Yeah. I mean, any chance that we can have Nilay here, I can always jump up. So it's fine.
Me too. Anybody would. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
If you watch people around, people flock around Kate. They'd flock around Craig. They'd flock around Khan. But if Nilay was out doing stuff, there was a line of people wanting selfies with her.
Yeah,
for sure, absolutely. So,
so Solly,
someone my heart, Nilay, if you need a bodyguard.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. It's like and the answer is kind of yes, but not really, because we're all nice, So we all
depending on the geography.
And trust me, if anybody tried to do anything to Nilay, there'd be 177 people that would be all over them. It would never happen.
And
never, ever.
Which ones practice kendo?
Exactly right. Yeah, because I mean, well, you do too, of course. Everybody does, but we all love Nilay. So yeah. So Anyway, but
so I'm here. For me, the most exciting part was, I would say the FFI gen and JNI gen was the best one because of the opportunities that it brings. Also, JS Interop was also nice. I don't know, like 3D was also amazing. Honestly, I felt like it was 4th of December 2018 again. It was the 1. It felt like 1.0 with all this news.
For anybody who doesn't know, that was Flutter Live. That was when they announced that Flutter was ready for production.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I felt like that again. So it was amazing. Honestly, it was a great opportunity. And the vibe here is insane. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, was that when we first met in live in London? It would have been, wouldn't it? Wow.
Yeah, do you remember the vegetables that I drank? Yeah, I still have the tree picture. Like, there was literally a tree in front of me, and it was stupid. Anyway, but Simon probably remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in fact, actually, I was introduced to Flutter a month later. I was in January. Yeah, so I missed Flutter Live.
Yeah.
So,
better late than never, right?
So do we have any questions for any of my guests?
Oh, boy.
Before we get to that, I have to hop off real quick. So I just wanted to say goodbye to everybody. And thanks for inviting me in. It was an incredible Flutter Forward. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for coming in, Matt. And actually, I'm going to have to go pretty soon myself. I was on Very's stream before the event as well, and I'm kind of talked out right now. But don't worry, Simon's got about 150 questions here. He'll be with you all day and night.
And I'll try and answer every single one.
All right. But hey, thank you all for coming. And Solly, you know.
Scott, we love you, and we're sorry you couldn't be here.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I broke your Scott. I will mend it.
See, Solly sent me a message yesterday saying, "Where are you at? Let's hook up." And I'm like, I'm not there. So
did we lose him?
Yep.
Maybe.
I think
I don't enjoy Saudi Arabia, Scott.
What?
Yeah. Out of context, it doesn't make sense, right?
That's one of the reasons why I need to go. Actually, I need to go get ready to go to Riyadh.
With Simon face to face. Couldn't make it.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Take care, folks.
Well, I don't think you saw well, but the only thing I'm going to say is that Simon is only slightly less famous at one of these than Eli is.
Yeah.
You know, we have everybody's running to Eli, but anybody that can't get to Eli is running to Simon.
Yeah. I mean, I hope you get the live stream from there. They were basically showing the tweets that people sent it before the keynote, like pre-keynote, and then it was like all people just sharing pictures with Eli. It wasn't like hashtag Flutter Forward. It was like hashtag. That's amazing. You know, having an impact in the community.
Yeah. No one cares about Nilay, so.
Yeah, whoever that is, right?
I don't know who she is, you know.
All right, so what questions do you have for us?
All right.
See, Scott. Right, let's get back to the questions.
Okay.
I'm not sure if any specific questions have come in. John says we're going to be here for hours. Yes, John, we might be here for hours. Let's just go through the quick questions and see if we can find some that are interesting. Let's have a look there.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to, you gotta come. I can move over.
Yes.
We're just trying to figure out the technical stuff. All right. So
I'm just going to go. I see what I'm going to do, Daniel. I'm just going to go through the questions that we've got in the stack. They're not specific for you, but if you guys want to put in some answers, please go right ahead. So
please, that'd be great. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there any way to monitor network speed inside Flutter desktop app? I mean, the way I've always done this.
I have a lot of stunned silence on my side here.
I was going to say.
Everybody's like, yeah.
What was the question?
Oh, is there any way to monitor network speed inside a Flutter desktop app?
Which platform?
Which platform?
The way I was going to say this is just use a proxy server, right? So use like Charles proxy.
Yeah.
Then your desktop app proxies through it, and then you can monitor how much traffic it's using.
Solly says you are right, Simon.
Yeah.
All right. I guess
I have to go now. Bye bye.
Oh, all right.
I'll go too.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'll let you. Bye bye.
Oh, you're off as well. All right.
Yeah.
It's just the
Then there was two.
Yeah.
All right. Let's carry on. Let's go top. There's so many questions here. I'm just trying to find some go through them. Randall, you're gonna join us on stream. Hey, we got Randall.
There we go.
Hey. Let's see if I can find.
Sorry, you're not here too, Randall.
Yeah.
I'm just picking these at random. I've given up. Right. What's the
there's nothing that was really specific for the people in Africa.
I was learning MVVM model, and what architectures do you recommend me to use?
Not MVVM.
What architectures? Yeah. Well, architectures.
And my then if I reply back with a question is like, okay, what was wrong with him facing MVVM? Like, what issues did you find in MVVM that you're trying to switch? Like, I would say, why don't you continue powering through MVVM? BLoC is another good way to do it. You could do multiple types of architectures, but was it anything wrong with MVVM that he's trying to find a switch? Maybe that's another question.
Yeah.
Danielle.
Actually, we are using MVVM model, like most MVVM, and we are going for provider and get it, like basically combination of it. And yeah, that's working well. It's kind of confusing, but we are using like a mixture of get it and
it's fine.
Yeah, provider.
Of course. So Esther recommends that. Esther recommends that.
Yeah.
Esther recommends that. We've had a long day. I haven't eaten all day. So I probably should actually be answering any questions. I'm just helping ask them.
Can I just say it depends?
That's the go-to answer. It depends.
Yeah. Right. Let's do what we have here.
My problem is I had a short night, not a long day, so it's almost as bad.
We're doing it actually. We are doing it in our
In Flutter, clean architecture with BLoC is it a bad practice to share data from one screen to another by using arguments?
Practice share data from one screen to other using arguments.
What does that mean?
So I think I think that what we're trying to get at is there's two ways of doing this, right? If you need to share data from one screen to another, you can pass that data as parameters to like your widget. Yeah. Right? Or you can use you can go get the other screen, go get them from a BLoC that you've then updated on the previous screen, for example, right? So you're not going direct, but you're going around. And I think it's whatever to me, I don't care either way. I think it'd be whatever is best for your use case.
I feel
example. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I agree with that. I was just going to say that, let's say let's say you could pass parameters through the route, let's say when you're navigating to another page, but I kind of go with that decoupled approach with not having to pass it through a parameter. That way it makes it more decoupled. And then you can even switch implementations so you don't have to depend on having to pass something via, let's say, a route as a parameter. So I'd say if you want to keep it clean and decoupled, not passing parameters, it may be the way to go. But again, nothing wrong with that either.
I mean, I'm going to say it depends upon what the new screen is. I mean, if it's a very tight screen that's doing something very specific, I think passing parameters makes a lot of sense. You don't need to go through a whole other way of doing that. But if it's just another, you're going from one global screen kind of to another like big screen, with lots of stuff, you probably don't, and that screen really has nothing to do with the one before it. I definitely would not be passing the arguments and trying to, do it that way, because at some time in the future, you may want to call it from somewhere else. And so it depends upon, so if you're going to call that screen from a different way, you might not have access to all of those parameters to pass in. And so that's
back to Ross' answer. It depends.
That's what Ross says. Yeah.
If the data is just so complex, something that you don't want to load it in the first place. For example, just consider Twitter. You just had like tweets. You just have text. You just have like preview of the images, but you don't fully load everything. And if you just want to go for details, then you can pass the ID. You can query for the backend. Then you can go for ask for more details, like all the comments who commented on it, all the people who liked on it. But if you are not basically caring of it, it doesn't need to be passed as an argument.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great example. If let's think of something like that where you could, like on Twitter, for example, you could actually click on a message, and that message is going to display all the stuff about that, and you already gathered that from what you got in your block. I think that's a perfect way to send it through as part of the arguments. But if you're just going to another screen, you wouldn't want to necessarily do that. If it's
I would just pass an ID, send a query to backend to get all the comments that I need to, query for that. Otherwise, while I'm just scrolling through the feed, I will not load the comments. I will just load the number of comments and I will just pass it. I don't need any of the people who commented any of the profiles.
So that's our answer from Africa.
Yeah. I was going to say a great rule of thumb that I would use is it modal? If it's modal, then you're required to put by parameter because it's an instantiation of something specific. Whereas if it's data you're getting, like Ezra just said, like if it's data you get from the backend, let's say like you have the tweet ID, you pass the tweet ID across, and you go fetch it from the backend of your app, and that's a global state, right? So the tweets are essentially global state by their ID. So that's the kind of difference in, I think, how you might do it. But to be honest, whatever makes sense for your application, and as long as you're consistent and it's tested and it all works well, then go for it.
Yeah. To pile on to what Simon just said, if you're collecting a lot of information you're not displaying on that page, then that may not be the right thing to be doing anyway. You probably shouldn't be passing that information to the page.
Definitely. So. If you don't need to load so much data, just pass it as an argument.
Right, but I'm also saying that if you're not displaying it all, then go get it from the other place, so. And that doesn't mean you can't like shit in the block or things like that. It's not meaning it's going to take a lot of extra time.
All right, should crack on for some more questions here.
We have 30 questions in 15 minutes, so do the math.
Wow.
We can overrun. You don't have to stay, but we can overrun to answer some of this.
No,
so
I'm staying. I'm just saying for people. Yeah.
Right. How to make BottomNavBar persist in child screens?
Shell route.
Yes.
and I've seen other people saying, and I think it was I can't remember who it was. Like if people say, "Can you have a shell route as a child of another shell route?" Yes, you can persist the bottom bar on a child screen, and then that shell route has another set of like nested navigation. You could definitely do that. So yes,
you can. So I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to do, but you can persist. So first of all, they're saying shell. Just want to clarify for the audience. They're saying shell route, which is part of Go Router. So if you're using the Go Router package, you can use shell route to achieve this.
Yeah, we're specifying Go Router because even if you use, for example, like I've tried using even Navigator 1.0 and the Navigator widget, and I've actually done the same approach. Of course, it has its intricacies, but you can do it.
And if you want to do this without Go Router, it would be the builder parameter of Material app, which lets you return back your own scaffold with your bottom navigation, and then the child that gets passed is your navigator, which you put in your body, your main section of content. But again. Right. There's different ways of doing this navigation. If you want like a navigator per stack of your like tabs and stuff, then that's nested routes, and you get to use a nested router with Go Router with shell routes and to achieve the same effect.
I mean, if you also don't want to use Go Router, there's like the Cupertino scaffold and the Cupertino bottom bar. I don't know what it's called. I don't remember, but that also like for.
I think it
kind of handles it under the covers.
Bar,
Cupertino page scaffold.
Right. And once again, if you want something sort of like that, the beauty of Flutter is you can go look at the code for that, and you can figure out how to make whatever tweaks you need to do to actually to embed your different routers like that.
There is something to be said about this.
While using bottom navigation bar, for example, in bottom navigation bar, sometimes you listen to user profile to show their picture, like you have it in the Twitter profile. You show the profile screen there, like you have a profile picture of it. So I'm passing that profile object directly to the child screen so that I'm not querying the profile again. Just like a shortcut. I had that information. And then Simon, gonna burst me like. Tell me why it's wrong, Simon.
What?
Tell me why it's wrong. I feel like there's a burst coming to me, like you're gonna judge me because of that.
No. I just did that sound because we heard the sound of the glasses being moved.
The sound of the glass, yeah, it was like affecting our ears.
I'm sorry. I was just we're in one of the break rooms during the thing, and I saw those were on there, so I just figured I'd move them out of the way. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can't remember what.
All right, so I think that was a question, right?
No, I was just going to mention that a lot of people, I want to be clear about a point here, that a lot of people think about what widget can I use, but they forget that every widget is composed of other base widgets that you can just make yourself. So if you want to make something, just make it, right? You can always do that, right? You want a button, well, then just change the background color. When you tap on it, you can do that. You know, you don't have to do something from others.
Yeah, that's what I love about Flutter, that you could. Let's go to the next question. Let's not. Yeah.
We can stand here all day. So I'm just going to keep going, sort of scanning through. Can I test actual 3D scenes example app right now? I didn't actually see that part. I literally missed that part of the keynote. I had to disappear earlier. So
well, they showed us a cube. They showed us a dart moving in 3D.
Yeah.
And then they made multiple darts all the way up to a cube, and they were running on an iPhone 6.
Yeah.
And I'd be astonished if that's not going to be available for something you could actually check out right now. The 3D part is completely experimental now. You had to turn on all kinds of experiments to make it happen. So it's definitely not something you want to put in your real app. But if you want to try it, I'd be willing to bet we can make that happen. That's
I think it was 7 to 7 dash.
Yeah.
Like 7 to 7.
No, 7 by 7 by 7.
Yeah.
So 340 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like a 3D model file.
Yeah, they have the 3D model file.
But
the point is the fact that they don't do things like that without showing the code at some point. So I may have to go look for that.
Yeah.
But I will try to get that for us. But the bottom line, I'll ask Tim next time I see him.
Yeah.
Which will be coming
that
up.
That was a message that come here. That's why they are mentioning forward. It was something that up.
But to be clear, it was very experimental.
Yeah.
So I would, as soon as you start changing things.
Yeah, I saw like it was like a flash. A scene widget with a path to a 3D model file. I just wanted to ask whether they support like FBX, OBJ, or those type of like STL type of 3D model files.
Yeah,
no.
So I will get Simon. I will get Simon and Randall a link to where the repo is for that if it's available, and they can put it out on the community Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can definitely do that.
Does that sound good for people?
Yeah. So that example, I'm kind of curious because the examples that we've seen so far of impeller in 3D have been the C++ kind of layer. So they've obviously exposed that to Dart now as an experiment, and it'd be really nice to have a play around with that. And I think that's what Rebar's getting at here. It'd be nice to see that Dart stuff. So yeah, if you can get hold of a link from anyone there at the conference about the example, I think
I will give it to you and you can tweet it out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think that was still one of the ones they said was still Dart widgets all the way down, right?
Yeah.
So widgets all the way down. So I will try to get you a link for that. Like I said, it was incredibly experimental, and I know they were doing some things that they were really rushing to get in for Forward. So there may not be a link yet, but I will let them know that we want to know the link as soon as it's possible, and I will make sure that gets to Simon and Randall and Scott, and they can tweet it out to the Flutter community, which you should of course be following anyway. If you're watching this, you should be following the Flutter community.
Yes, you should. Yes, indeed. I'm just going to just mention a bit about the 3D piece, and that is if you're interested in the 3D models, it's a standard called GLTF, and you can go read up about GLTF and learn all about that. But it's a new standard.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's the model type they used. I'm not sure that's the model type they used, but once I find out, I'll get it to you.
It's definitely, the whole system works in GLTF. I've done a lot of but yeah.
Simon does that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. There's no reason why you can't. So to be clear, like object files, all these things, they're just file formats that you can make a parser for. They're all open standards. There's actually already parser on pub.dev for like object files, so you can do all this. It's not a problem. All right, let's get to the next questions. Otherwise, we'll run out of time. Hey, my question is about Google mobile ads. Does Google mobile ads package support ads from Facebook? No. So the Google Mobile Ads package is based off of AdMob, the AdMob system framework.
Right, AdMob,
So Facebook has its own ad network, which is separate to Google's. You would have to get a Facebook plugin specifically to do the Facebook ads.
There's actually a Facebook events package. I've used it before for ads.
Yeah, but the Google one specifically doesn't.
Oh, I know.
But Ro is saying there's a package that we think we could that would actually let you do Facebook ads if you wanted.
Yeah, I don't see the question very clearly, but yeah.
The question was, hey, my question is about Google Mobile Ads. Does Google Mobile Ads package support ads from Facebook? Right, but what we're always saying is we think there's a package out there that could support ads from Facebook.
Yep.
And I'm going to caveat. I just want to be very clear about this point, and it got into a lot of contention around ads. I want to make a point clear. You cannot just use any package to display ads. So officially, so to be very clear about this, because Flutter renders its own UI, and then when they tap on an ad, that's faking a click. To a lot of the native frameworks, it's how people fake ad clicks to gain money, and they can see your account as being if you use kind of ads through just a generic package, it can be seen that you're faking clicks and your ad account will be banned, possibly whenever. This is the reason why we had to wait for Google to make the mobile ads package, because then it's an official Google product and is not classified as a package that might be faking clicks, right? So just be cautious. If you're going to use the Facebook ad stuff, make sure you know what you're using. That's what I'm going to say. I don't know enough about it, so that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
We agree with that from Africa. Africa agrees with that. Everybody in the room is shaking their head yes.
All right, Tekis says, can you share some examples on how Flutter has been used in real-world projects and what the development team face?
Well, there's the Wondrous app, and I think there's been like posts about it, and that's like a great example. Also, like a couple of the ones that the ones that they just did right now. I think they released the one for the what was it? The app with Very Good Ventures. They did one with
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But I don't know if anybody's documented really the problems they've had. But yeah, I'll be honest. This is kind of
challenges.
I'm being specific about this. Forget about examples. Just say everyone here has worked on a Flutter project, right? What are some of the what is the real work? Can you speak about that real world project, and what were some of the challenges you might have faced building that real world project? Does anyone want to add anything?
I mean, I'm gonna keep deferring to Roa's answer. It depends. Because I've had like multiple projects, like I told you, Simon, a project where I did like that I am actually integrating low-level devices, like external devices, using Dart FFI to connect to like third-party devices. I've had issues connecting to like Bluetooth or network. You've seen a couple of examples where I've been trying to load Flutter in low-power devices, smaller screens. So it all depends. I have to pick one project and then tell you the challenges. But if you say in a general sense, like Flutter is very what is it? It's not. It's very friendly. You could get to that, but there are some intricacies. But it all like varies from project to project. I can't say like one single issue that I've had throughout like all projects that is the same.
If the questioner, I've lost the question. If the questioner was asking about maybe areas to learn, I'd say that in developing mobile apps, caching and offline behavior are very key concepts that a lot of the time are left behind and can be very difficult depending on your app and how you build your apps. So I'd say look into those. If you're building a product, make sure it works offline, make sure it works in bad connection situations.
But for example, if it deals with that, because for example, in most of the projects I've worked, I haven't had to do that much of that. I've done like one or two where you do offline capabilities. But I would say like one topic that, and I know Roa is going to agree with me, like whenever you build a project, like you want to add like nice animations, that actually is a key differentiator between one application and the other. Like you want to make it so that like it truly pops, and you want to attract your users. User experience is something that is actually overlooked in a lot of applications.
So go.
One of the things I would say that can sometimes pop in is if you're trying to build for multiple platforms and you're using some packages that are using fairly platform-specific things, you can have problems trying to find combinations that work together.
I actually I have worked on a project once that used live support. As like the chat live support thing. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, we needed to do native code for iOS and Android to do that, because I think it was like a framework that does. The client was very specific about it, but it's very specific cases. But eventually, it all works out. So.
I had that once for using bottom sheet. It's just opening it up, and then the designer designed a lot of flows after bottom sheet, but the current library is not supporting that much navigation and loading that many basically queries and so on. It's just not adapted. We just had to fork the library and basically try to make it work with that, because actually normally an app shouldn't use that much bottom sheets. Then we just say, you know what, we're gonna need to build the library from zero. Then we just remove it from all of the application.
I mean, most cases, the worst case would be if you can fork the library, then you can fork it and you can develop whatever you need for it. So.
Right, but that always has a problem with maintaining
definitely
it.
a problem.
Yeah.
So
because you also want to make a contribution to the open source community.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's also taking a lot of time to make it work for open source for everybody to make it, because you are basically solving your own issue, but it's not covering all of the cases and it doesn't have tests enough.
Yeah. I mean, for example, in the video that I released today on the Flutteristas channel, which I'm sure Simon, if he hasn't already, will retweet for me.
I have posted it. Actually, I posted the playlist for the entire lit here in the channel.
So in that, for example, I ran into a problem with the Flutter community package that gives us the information about version numbers and things like that. And because of the way that my system is set up, doing a cache busting really hurts performance, and it's not necessary. So that's something I'm going to work with. Majid put in the original pull request, but I'll work with Simon and Majid and everybody to make to see if I can put in a patch that'll do it. Otherwise, because I forked it, I will be, it'll have problems otherwise, So we'll come up with a solution for that. And that's kind of another thing I guess I would say is sometimes a widget may not do exactly what you want. Like, for example, I've got a widget. I'm trying to remember exactly what the circumstance is, but it's basically an expanding panel. And if I use the built-in one, there's no way to do it by a keyboard or by programmatically, which means I can't do it by keyboard. And so I've either got to go and add that capability in by duplicating that widget or use a much more complicated widget. So I would say that there's times where if a widget doesn't do exactly what you want to do, that can be a problem. But again, it's open source. So you're able to go look and see exactly how it did it before. And if you can't figure out a way to actually do it the way it wanted to, and it's really important to your design team or whoever, there are ways around it. You can actually go ahead, and there's opportunities to then go ahead and put a PR in and add your fix in so that it helps the whole community. So, yeah.
Not just the typo fix.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's see what else we've got in here. More than 15 million developers learn through SOLOLEARN. Is it supported by 26 Dart? Oh, except for Dart. We need to support Dart and Fusion. So go speak to them. I have no idea. Can't help you. Sorry. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah.
It feels like an advert to me. So I'm just saying. I know it's not because I know the question, but you gotta be careful. Can you discuss any breaking changes or migration steps that developers should be aware of when upgrading to Flutter 3.7?
No breaking.
There was mentioned before about just small stuff that can, lead breaking about design part, but they are not really critical.
But it wasn't a real breaking change.
It wasn't really breaking. So
I just upgraded an hour ago.
Yeah, because you have to opt in. So I don't know. Simon, do you know of any breaking changes in 3.7?
Not a big deal.
I can't think of any off the top of my head. However, I will mention that there is a Google group remember Google Groups? There's a Google group for Dart announcements and Flutter announcements that tell you about breaking changes. When a new version of Flutter is released, there's a breaking change. They will announce it on there, and you can go find out about it. So that's the best way to go, sort of get that information, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, I think that would sort of give you the information you need to answer that. Yeah. But I can't think of any migration. The best thing you can do is upgrade your local. I mean, this is what so whenever a new version of Flutter has come out, every person that's built a Flutter app goes and upgrades their local version. They go build their app. They see what broke. They go upgrade all their packages. They see what broke. They fix them. That is the job of being a developer, right? That's part of it.
That's probably quite a good question to the whole panel is. So 3.7 was released, last night for us.
Yeah.
At what point would you upgrade your project, Simon?
As soon as it works.
I'll be honest with you. I would be in a position where it's normally a case that's already ready, right? Because I will be working a lot of the time against not just stable, but against beta. So I'm kind of working ahead. That kind of makes sense. So when the stable gets released, I'm then ready for that because I've been working against beta, right? So
as far as you're concerned, stable's pretty good.
Yeah.
How about you, Randall?
Well, I was just going to say that one of the things that you should always be able to do is to be able to test against both the upcoming version and the current version and past versions if you're stuck on those. There are two tools for that I want to mention. FVM, probably a lot of people know about, which is the Flutter version manager package. Really nice. That was the granddaddy, but now there's Puro, P-U-R-O. That's in the hub. A much easier design in that it actually to download a new version of the repo for a particular installation, it downloads only the Git diffs, which are much faster to download and much less space on your disk. So you can keep 20 different versions of Flutter all at the same time on your disk, and it wouldn't take more than about 2 or 3 times the size of a single repo. So check that out. Puro, P-U-R-O. So
yeah, also in the library side, they mentioned that the most top used 1,000 packages, more than almost 98% of them already updated to the latest version. So even though you're using a lot of libraries, like lots of them discovered with the latest update.
Right.
And Mike, do you upgrade when it comes out or do you wait a little while?
No, I'm working. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bring Mike over.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll just come in here on top as well. I've been working a lot against master, but more testing against the data channel. Just to make sure that everything was running smoothly with all the new teaming and material tree things that is going on there. And I can really say that it is really nice and ready to use. There are some minor issues. I have reported maybe 20 of them, but they are really so minor. So they are picky designers might see them, but there is some small deviations from the specification here and there. Those are going to be fixed over time, and it's nothing that most people will notice.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining 20 issues, one with each one of them saying this one pixel is wrong, this other pixel is just wrong.
There is wrong defaults and things like that, but that's things you can adjust anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Are you running some kind of golden test?
Yeah, I have like thousands of tests in the Flex Color Scheme program that tests things and do things also.
And what is Flex Color Scheme?
Flex Color Scheme is a package for make teaming easier because it comes with a web teams playground where you can just configure your team, everything from border radius to 52 different color schemes, and you can make your own, and you just push a button to export the team and it creates the team data for you.
And it's created by an awesome developer.
Oh, thanks.
And it is for free.
Yeah.
And that actually brings up another great point, which is the better your testing is, the better you can do any kind of refactor, which would include upgrading your Flutter version. Anytime anything changes, if you got good testing, you will know instantly whether or not it breaks something or not.
Yeah.
And Solly is off screen, but do you upgrade immediately or do you wait?
Normally I do, but I didn't do with 3.7 because I was busy.
Yeah.
All right, so
I was yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear Solly, but he says he normally does. But what he didn't say is the internet's really bad here.
That's just one of the issues.
So he has it on 3.7, but he normally upgrades immediately.
I was in a workshop earlier and I had to upgrade, so I upgraded.
It took hours?
No, it took like about 30 minutes or something.
I published a package
Yeah.
yesterday on 3.7
No,
using 3.7. So
Yeah.
Only if you ask me, like if you, for example, like at work, like the projects that I do at work, I only do those, for example, like when it's the stable version. But I feel adventurous when I create like a new project or like a test project. Then I'm like Mike. I'm like either in the beta or like the master, but that's only for exploratory cases. Only at work, for example, like I only do when it's like an official stable version or whatnot.
To be clear, for everyone that's watching, the releases go to beta first. So if you're on beta, 3.7 has been on beta for some time now, and then it gets released to stable. So if you want to work ahead, ready for the next version, you can work against beta. But obviously, you should be releasing against stable. So so you might have 2 branches, and you do it once a quarter. I think we're seeing a new beta release. I think that was the plan. But it's all the release information about how Flutter does its releases, the pre tags and everything else. That's all on the website. So
and for the Americans, that's beta, not beta.
Yeah, I know.
I translate English to English there. Yes.
and the other thing I will say is there will likely be in a week there will be a 3.7.1. In another week or two, it'll be a 3.7.2. So, I mean, they do address things, but those are usually pretty small.
yes, those are really small fixes. You never see any major new feature being released in those hot fixes.
Yeah.
They're just critical bug fixes.
Those are just issues that Mike reports,
To anyone of them.
Yeah. Solly's off screen, but could you hear him okay?
Yes.
Daycare, right?
It's been a long day, but
Very long day.
Well, I'm going to answer this one first. Okay, I'm trying to actually play like host and jump in with stuff, but I'm going to answer this one first. If it's a web app and you're talking about loading performance, you should watch my video.
And your video, I posted the link to the video in the chat. So, also, so here's another thing to the Terran, I don't know. How to improve your performance. They just released today in 3.7 all the new dev tools, which include performance profiling and a bunch of other things. So go check those out, and that will give you your answer there. There you go.
Yep.
Let's see what else we've got here. Why are you using mounted?
And by the way, my career here in Africa keeps shrinking, just so you know.
Right. Why are we using mounted separation? Can't you stay mounted inside the set state function? Oh, why are we? I don't know what he's getting. I don't quite get the question, so I'm gonna say please re-ask it. But I think it's the fact that you now have a mounted in stateless widgets, and the answer to that is in callbacks. You might need to check if the widget's still mounted before you do a navigation or some other sort of UI change, and that's the appropriate place to do that. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
We'll keep this going. We're getting there. We're whittling it down.
Yeah, let's go to the next.
Do you know of any plans for the official audio plugin? We're not the
We're not the nothing mentioned about that today.
No.
It'd be
We've been listening all day. Nothing was said.
Yeah.
I have to say, like I've been dying for a long time. I've been using Flutter Forward is that as an official audio package, right? Because we have the video player, we have the image picker, and all that kind of stuff. What we're missing is that audio system, but it is a UI framework. Right, so predominantly that is it. But I consider audio as part of the UI, clicking sounds and things like that. And the framework does support those specific circumstances. I can't complain about it. However, having something that's more widely usable in terms of playback of audio would be great. But as far as I know, I have not heard it.
Yeah, but what do they mean by official? Meaning supported by the Google team, released by the Google team? Because that are great. Then what's the point of supporting the community? I love some of those audio plugins already developed by the community, and I've used them in dozens of apps. I know you guys have as well. But is it that maybe it has more clout or more validation?
I tell you,
my favorite. I was gonna say, my follow-up question is, what's your favorite package of those?
There's like 3 or 4 different audio packages.
Like a few top ones, yeah.
And they are the top ones that are listed on pub. I won't speak about those specifically, but what we'll mention is what we're missing from this is the Flutter team needs to drive a federated package which has an interface, right?
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. That makes sense.
That makes sense. People, right? So what you should be doing is getting everyone, the top package creators in a room saying, would you be interested in providing a federated interface? You still have your existing one, but provide a federated interface that if you implement, will officially support that interface as part of, that makes sense to me. That brings everyone together, that kind of thing. Right?
I hear.
What do you mean by federated?
So you have federated plugins, right? They have an interface that each version of the plugin, like the web, the Linux, the Windows has to implement. Well, you can still have that same federated package separate. That's how they do them normally. And that each of those plugin vendors would then say, we implement the federated, and you can just say federated.instance equals, I don't know, web audio players.instance or something. And it would set up. So you'll be using their code, their implementation. They have to maintain their implementation. They're not the Google don't have to maintain it, but Google have to maintain the interface that they all adhere to, right? So the standard is set by the Flutter team, but the package authors can actually implement that in their own, if that kind of makes sense.
Or is it that people are looking for like a audio plugin that you can just bring in? It already has the widgets embedded. All you have to give it is just the list of MP3 files or the list of the network path.
This is what I'm trying to say. The problem here is all the use cases, right?
Exactly. Because I've had to reinvent the wheel a couple of times. Yeah.
This is the problem. Like the reason why there's one doesn't. It's not the big thing is the maintenance, right? But a lot of it is about design. There's a lot of user research and that has to be done to design a good package, a good API that can support a wide range of people. It's one of the reasons why these things like the video player package eventually over time improve, right? Because they're getting that feedback loop. So we'll see is the answer. Anyway.
Next one.
Next question.
By the way, are we going overtime? I think Randall has lots of questions for us.
If you have any, can't think of anything specific here. Hang on, let me see if I can see.
We don't see the question anymore.
We're just gonna go pick some other ones here, and if you guys need to head off, please let me know, and that's obviously perfectly fine.
I had a complete room full to begin with, and we're down to Roa's off screen, Solly's off screen, and Ezra and me. So we are definitely running out, but
no, that's fine. And I know it's you're like 3 hours ahead now. What time is it there?
It's 10:17.
Yeah, I'm 8 hours ahead.
Yes.
And my flight didn't get to Nairobi until my flight got in actually a fairly reasonable time of 3:30 or whatever.
Yeah, we slept like 1.5 hour.
Yeah, but it was 6:30 by the time I got to my hotel, so 2 hours. So
tell you what we're gonna do.
Holding like this.
I'm going to say to the audience right now, get your questions in. If you want them answered by the people at the event, otherwise we're going to have a hard stop on that in 15, 20 minutes or something. Right on the half-hour mark. So yeah, get your questions in and let these guys head off because they've got their partying and sleeping to do by the sound of it. So
I actually think we forgave partying for you guys.
Yes.
We're
sacrificing the big party downstairs.
Because you all in the audience mean that much to us.
Yes. And there's a question about animation. Maybe we should call Roa here.
Yeah.
Roa,
come here,
we have
please.
an animation question. Come here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Although I'm afraid it's not. I'm afraid it's actually the page animation question, really, probably.
Yes, maybe she has an idea.
Or maybe you have an answer. Come on in.
Maybe has an answer. Let's see.
Okay. Best animation practices, ways of navigating pages. Okay, so this there are 2 parts of this question, I think. So best animation practices is, I think, to always keep the user experience in mind, because whenever we get carried away, we want to create very cool animations and we want to make the app animated a lot, but we forget that the user might be very confused because like if you open an app and everything is moving, it's too much. So you have to always keep in mind the user experience.
Okay, so
like,
but that sounds like a rule. Don't make too many things move.
Yep.
You know, figure out what you want to focus on moving and make that happen.
That also causes some performance issues, you know.
Yeah, and I think like the best practice is to show it to like people who are not very involved in tech, because when they look at an app and it's very animated, they get really confused, and that's your cue to not do it that way. So it's the best advice would be to like keep in mind all the users that are involved in your app and not make it very difficult for them to understand your app.
Okay. We have a, by the way, we have a 5-minute deadline now. We're gonna lose our camera in 5 minutes.
Okay. So the second part of the question is the ways of navigating pages.
The best way of animation.
It's the best way of animation. That it's built in Flutter. You have like when you override the navigator.push and you give it a material page route, you have an animation value and you can use it. You can also use it in the page builder of the Go router routing movement. That you can do it in any case. And whenever you have an animation double value, you can use it to create whatever you want.
Page route builder.
Page route builder
Has
has
you
an
an animation with a double.
Yeah, page router builder has an animation. You could also like you could override your own animations as well. You can roll it in around like an animated builder. You could use like I like the explicit animation widgets that you could use, like slide transition, fade transition. You could use some of those as well.
Yep, the fade translation is the easiest one. You can just give it the animation value. You're good to go. I usually use it with hero animations because when you have a hero animation, you don't want the page to slide in. It would a bit like break the hero animation, and you want to do a fade animation. But whatever you do, it's this kind of element.
A suggestion to people is like try not to immediately gravitate to a separate package because Flutter already comes embedded with some great functionality that you can tap into right away.
Yes, sometimes it's an overhead too. Yes.
I think we'll leave it there. We'll let you guys head off, and thank you so much for joining us, by the way. And have a lovely time in Nairobi.
I'm dropping off as well. Yeah,
we'll see you again. Yeah.
And I think the biggest message to bring out Flutter Forward is the future looks incredible.
Amazing. It's outstanding.
Yeah. It's promising, I would say.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
See you again. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
I'm dropping off as well, guys. Thank you so much for having me. As always, it's a pleasure sharing this space with y'all.
Hey, Roman, where did I get this shirt?
Oh my God, you look so nice. Thank you. Oh, nice. It fits nicely.
Tell them how. Tell them how. Talk about your frog thing you made.
Oh, the application is called Skipping Frog. It was a game, Flutter casual game that I built, and I did it over a span of 12 episodes. For each episode, I was raffling a Flutter T-shirt, and Randall was one of the amazing supporters throughout the whole series. So thank you, everybody. I will come with another series soon. So yes.
I still don't know how Randall has not had one since now.
It's true.
He's like, what?
So I made it happen. So yes. Take care, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Let's see. Bye.
I mean, it was only a year ago that I got one of these. I mean, and you guys have had these forever, so I don't know.
Oh, well.
Just the way it is.
It's all right.
It's the way it is. I don't hang out in the right circles, I guess.
We're going to get to all these. We're going to power around all these questions that are remaining.
Let's just go.
And then I think that we'll call it there. So,
18 to go.
Flutter Wi-Fi direct peer-to-peer.
He just threw nouns into the channel a bunch of times.
I'm going to tell you
what
so
he's
there's
actually
plenty of
asking.
packages. There's actually a package for the Apple stuff. There's a package. I've used them. There is a package for Wi-Fi Direct as well on pub.dev. I think the key thing here to mention is that if this question is like, does Flutter support that? Well, Flutter is again, UI Toolkit offers what's called platform channels or method channels, and these let you communicate with the main platform to use any of the features that Android or iOS have. So there's no reason you cannot use. So anything that Android can do, you can do in your Android-based Flutter application. And the same goes for iOS. Anything iOS can do, and you can do in your iOS Flutter application, right? So you can do all this. This is not a problem. So yes, if the question was, does it support it? The answer is yes, it does. but you might need to do some work. And because go look at a package, it doesn't exist or doesn't do what you want. Add the functionality, make it do what you want. Next one, Flutter Video Player Web Full Screen Issue iOS and Android. I've used Flutter. So first of all, I've done other video players, and full screen on web is an inherently a difficult problem because of the way it actually works. However, I've done it in a Flutter web app, and it works perfectly fine if you do it right. So I don't know what specific issue you're talking about, but you can do it. I've done it. So you have to go look at how you just do it on HTML in the first place, right? So you just make any HTML element be the full screen element, and it makes it the full screen element. And essentially, that's what you're doing. There's a way of doing it.
And just a bit of advice: if you just put nouns in a string, that's not a question. You need to have a question that really
formulate a question. Use grammar, please. It helps.
And a question mark at the end. If it doesn't have
a question mark, like
this does. This does.
What do you think about GPT-3 and Flutter? Right,
we've talked about this.
Go back
over and over.
Last video, the video before that, and the video before that, and the video before that, where we actually played around with GPT-3. So that we'll push that. Every episode, I think we've spoken about this. The question is, it looks awesome. Don't trust it though, because it's authoritatively wrong sometimes.
Yes.
But it's great that you can type in and say, "Help me do this," and it gives you a starting point. That's brilliant. It's like the next Google. Awesome.
It delivers all answers with an air of authority and enthusiasm about the answer, but it could be completely wrong while doing that. It takes a human to filter those out.
Yeah. All right. Next. David, what is the advantage of impeller over other multi-system compatible engines like Filament? Why decide to rewrite another engine? Like Filament, to be honest, I've never seen Filament. I had to say that Flutter's. I think I've seen it. I'm literally gonna have to look it up. Filament engine. Is that gonna get me anything? Google Filament. Oh, okay, yeah. Filament is real-time physically based rendering engine for Android. Yeah, physically based. So this is not. This is about. Hang on. This is about
physics.
No, this is what I was going to say. I think this is more like a ray tracing. The idea of a ray tracer, which is not what Impeller's about.
Right. Impeller is about the replacement to Skia being faster, which is a way of layering 2D stuff really quickly. It happens to have a 3D component, but that's not really the selling point.
I'm looking at Filament. Yeah, Filament is about that sort of ray tracing aspect of realistic materials and so on, which means the calculation of the colors is based off of light, the materials, very detailed descriptions of the materials, and what is the advantage? It's not meant for that, right? So Impeller is although Impeller is here, Impeller does 3D. It's not inherently designed for 3D in terms of like that kind of thing, right?
It's like you can't replace all of what Skia does with OpenGL. Yeah. It's like a different level of stuff.
There is some overlap. Don't get me wrong, but they have different targets. I will mention just the key point here that people think maybe don't realize. Example of this Filament. I'm going to put the link in the chat here just so people understand what I'm talking about. It's there. There's Filament, Google Filament on GitHub. You could go take Filament, embed it into a plugin or into your Android part of your application or your iOS part of your application, and use that in your Flutter app. Have like a window which is a 3D scene that renders the Filament images, or there's somehow real time. You can walk around. You can do that. You can do that right now. Nothing stops you from doing that. The difference is Impeller is the framework that actually renders the entire stack of Flutter, meaning that it's all in line with each other. It's not like two separate renders that are being brought together. It's actually the one render that contains it all. There's subtle differences in the way that works. All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
Keep going. Yes.
Majid's not here, so sadly, but we'll see if we can answer this. Otherwise, sorry for missing this. Melos only works in packages. Is there a way for it to use a whole project, e.g., running Flutter pub get should fetch package dependencies and the project dependencies together? You can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you just need to specify
like
it correctly.
Your project is just a package, and it works just as well. You just add that as one of your things, and you can actually run. So you can run pub-get across all the packages in your project, which includes the project itself, because it is a package. If it has a pub spec YAML, it will work with Melos.
Yep, it's good at that.
How to check if our code works on iOS? We don't have Mac or iPhone.
Get a friend. Get a friend that has a Mac.
There is a couple of online services. So first of all, what's the
CodeMagic can compile to.
Well, CodeMagic can compile it, but it's not really meant for like checking if it works. What you want is to rent a Mac Mini, and for the life of me, I can't remember.
AWS can rent you one.
AWS. No, there was actually Mac Stadium. MacStadium.com is the leading vendor of hosting Macs.
Mac and Cloud, Bitrise.
There's a bunch of them, but but I mean, like Mac Stadium's been around a long time, and it's offered hosting, and but the idea is that you get one of those, you VNC, and you've got a desktop then of Mac, and you just run into your code. It's just like having and owning a Mac, but you're renting it over a period of time. But the fact of the matter is, to do iOS, you need a Mac. Full stop. It's just the way the iOS ecosystem works. There are things called Hackintoshes, which are like running like the Mac software on non-Mac hardware. It's a minefield. It's not supported. Blah 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 blah. I don't need to tell you caveat. But that's a world of you if you want to try that route. But honestly, right now the easiest, fastest way to get to do is do something like this, where you just go rent a Mac Mini for the period of time of your development, and it'll cost you X amount per month. You just do your builds, it just works. So,
Yep. Okay, next.
ChatGPT 3 generated example code deprecated. Hey, it's some kind of deprecated. Can't you train? Okay, the reason why it shows deprecated code is because it's a year out of date. ChatGPT 3 is working on a data set. Is from, when was it?
2010. So it's actually a while out.
No, I thought it was up to a year ago. It might have been 2021.
Maybe 2011, but it wasn't 2012.
I can't remember, but it's old. Yeah. That's why the things you're getting are old examples, right? So if you ask for like how to do something with riverpod 2.
Oh wait, 2022. Sorry, I'm up 2020 then. 2020. Where the hell am I coming from?
I know it's going to be like what? No, 2020. 2020. So whatever. But the point here is it's out of date, meaning that if you said something that came out in this last year, let's say riverpod 2.0, it'd be like, I don't understand what's Flutter and riverpod 2 because it's not in this data set. So that's what's happening. And yes, they will train it with the latest data set, I'm sure, but that will take some time. Not our problem. We don't work there. So good luck for that.
I'm going to say this in audio. I've typed this 7 times now in the chat. We're done taking questions. No more questions. No more questions. Okay. No more questions.
Sorry. No more questions.
Yes.
Right.
Go ahead.
Anything new for server-side Dart development? I didn't see anything announced. However, they are constantly working on it. But to be honest, anything related to Dart, the language, also works in Dart server-side. So all the stuff with patterns and records, that all applies to server-side Dart code. All the extra debugging profile, that all works, Dart code. So anything related to Dart obviously works with server-side. I didn't have anything specifically around that.
No, there wasn't anything like that. No.
I might have missed, this might have been missed because this would have been a good question for Kevin Moore. So what I suggest you do is reach out to @KevMoo on Twitter and maybe he can point you at something. That's the best I can do. Sorry. When I debug code, go on.
But just back on that last topic for a second, there have been some updates to Go Router that have been pretty significant, and some of that might affect what you can do. Oh no, I guess it wouldn't affect server side, would it? Well, sorry, but Shelf is still being updated too. So Shelf,
I can actually give you some interesting stuff about third parties. Dart Frog has been improved by Very Good Ventures, so you can take a look at that. Serverpod exists. I don't know the author directly, but I know that's being worked on. And there's also another one now, another server-side framework called Target, and that's going to be launched by Invitays here in the UK, in Manchester, they're based. and they also worked on Flutter Fire. They're a well-known development crew. So again, that's another option. So, all right. When I
no more questions. Stop asking questions. We're trying to get through the 10 we have left. Come on.
when I debug the code nowadays, I'm getting micro task running error. Any ideas how to solve this? So
debug it.
I can say no. The problem. I tell you what the problem here is what's happening is you're crossing an asynchronous boundary, and you need to know what started the asynchronous task and put a breakpoint there. Frankly, it's like there's no stack anymore, right? You're starting something new. It's quite difficult to debug asynchronous stuff. It's nothing to do about nowadays. There's nothing that's really changed in Flutter that I can think of that would make that difference. I may be wrong, but the way you need to do this is essentially use the debugger, put breakpoints in, step through the code, work out where it's going wrong. When you'll get, it will take you in the right direction, but you need to work at it. It's not going to come for free. All right, Mytho, what are your thoughts on code generation tools? Do they make it easier or harder over the long term? I personally like lightweight code generation tools. I don't like something that's just going to generate a bunch of stuff for me. The reason, a lot of the reasoning for this is I'll give an example of this, and I don't know. Let me give it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say Open API. You've got yourself a Open API spec. You generate the client code, and it generates all this whole ton of models and client code for interacting with the server. That's fine. However, if you want to modify any of that or add some additional functionality, you can't because it's generated, right? So now you need to. That's great that you've got all this stuff generated for you, but now you need to put another layer in front, put your interfaces on that, and then maybe translate between these two different models, your data model in your app and the model used to the API, and so on and so forth. So it can make it harder, right? But in the long term, I think code generation is fine. I think it has to be used productively in the right places for things that are going to, be a problem. But again, here's the thing: let's say give an example of the Open API. Once you've generated that code, you can always remove it and replace it with your own. So there's no, there's no like long-term effects really, right? You should be relying long-term on any generated code because you're not your code generated.
One of the things that's important in code generation, I think, is to make sure that the domain from which you're translating is carefully specified. Because if it's not complete and there are holes in it, and then you're going to need a way to do to fill in one of those holes, you don't have any way to access the transformation to get the same stuff on the other side. So you have to make sure your input space is bound enough that you can actually translate everything you would ever need from that to your target.
For sure. All right.
Might be obvious, but yeah. Okay.
Currently, Dart is mostly used for front-end Flutter. Can Dart take over other areas for back-end machine and deep learning?
Yes.
It's not. I'd say yes, it's mainly used for front-end because that's where it started. But actually, no, Dart's being used a hell of a lot in the back-end on server side and everything else. Yeah. Amount of questions we've had over the last year has been ridiculous, and not just questions here, but like actually stuff I've seen in the community, stuff I've been doing, that I know other people are doing. Dart on the server side is really taking over. And now what we're seeing, and I'll hold this up for anything, Dart in embedded devices has always been a thing. You've always been able to do this with Dart, but now it's becoming more prevalent. And what you might not know, in fact, I would say you go look at the Flutter Forward playlist. I'm gonna pop the playlist in the chat again for this is watching material for after our live stream is finished. But there's some talks in there. But Maxim Lin actually did a great talk in there, and he mentioned the fact that Flutter's been used in car dashes. Like Toyota. What was who was picking up Toyota?
GM and Toyota.
And BMW was, I can't remember. There was a bunch. I don't. GM was GM. It? I feel like there was another one.
It was GM and Toyota.
Anyway, but the car manufacturers are now using it for doing the UI on their dashboards and things like that, and they're based, little I guess Linux sort of stuff. But yeah, you can use them in that. So it's really like it's really quite infinite when you think about you now see desktop apps being made with Flutter as well. When it comes to machine and deep learning, I think we're going to see more of that now. So the problem with a lot of the machine and deep learning stuff is based on Python. Python's fine; it works just well for what it does. I think there might be some enhancements when it comes to the next Dart 3 with patterns and records and all that kind of stuff, because with that and deep learning and doing those kind of the language models in Dart then becomes quite straightforward. Not straightforward, but it's definitely easier to achieve, and that to porting that sort of like Python-esque style of code over to Dart and seeing it work in Dart. But right now, yeah, you could easily code it. It's just it's not necessarily as easy as in Python, should I say? But there's no reason why it couldn't.
Well, as completed, because somebody else already wrote the Python code. We have to rewrite that in Dart, or somehow come up with the Python to Dart translator, which actually would be a fun project, but I don't have time for that.
And I will mention now, there's plenty of machine learning stuff in Dart. So you've got Google ML Kit, you've got TensorFlow, you've got TensorFlow Lite. These are all models, and they all work with Flutter and Dart apps. So check them out.
Yep.
All right, moving on. How to get Flutter phone APIs, camera, Wi-Fi hotspot. I think that I'm gonna extrapolate this as how to get them inside your Flutter app. And the question for the point I just made earlier is you use a method channel. So you can write the little bit of native code on Android or iOS to return back the data that you need down over a method channel to Dart. And that's how that works. Now, there are some packages out there that have already done this. And I will mention this now. That is what you're probably looking for is the Plus plugins. So the community took over a bunch of packages from the official Flutter, the official Flutter team. It's plus.fluttercommunity.dev. If you go there, you'll see a matrix of all the Flutter packages. Some of them is network info, device info, and package info plus. Package info plus, device info plus, and network info plus. All those three packages answer, I think, most of those points that you asked there, which was Wi-Fi and hotspot is covered by the network stuff. Camera is the camera package. Go use that. There you go. Hope that helps. All right. What are your thoughts on code generate? Sorry, jump in if you want to answer one round. Sorry. What are your thoughts on code generator tools? Did they make it? Oh,
I think we had this already. Oh, I'm sorry. That was duplicated. Don't duplicate things. Most of the time I catch it. Every once in a while I don't.
Is RISC-V or RISC-V more efficient than ARM? I think I'd say it's a different space. And the problem we've got right now is it's like saying, how's an apple different from an orange, right? Or something like that. Like, how is a peanut different from an orange? I mean, they're just completely different things, right? However, when they both officially do the same, like you can make it smoother from an apple, you can make it smoother from an orange, right? Like we can run programs on both ARM and RISC-V, right? The thing here is it's about, I mean, there's so many measurements of performance, and it's really difficult to get that kind of apparent because, again, you can do one piece of code over here, one piece of code over there, and depending on how you've written that code, it might be more efficient on one or the other. Like you can write things that are more efficient on like one architecture than another because you know the architecture, like the cache line and various things, the CPU, how it works and so on. So I think it's more about the more RISC-V. Now RISC-V is part of the Linux kernel. Support for it is in the Linux kernel. And we're now seeing wider support on lots of software. The more open source software and the more packages that are now getting RISC-V support as part of their official chain, we're going to start seeing that we can gather these performance statistics, and then we can compare what is libjpeg like on this platform and this platform, right? But until we kind of get to those levels, we're not going to see that because it's very at the early stages right now. But the key thing for what we're doing is that, you know, if you get Flutter and Dart compiling on RISC-V, is what I'm currently working on, then you can then run Dart and Flutter applications on these lower power devices. What the performance is like, what specs you need of the device, these are all things that we sort of work towards. But again, there's always performance benefits to all these things. Like it's complicated is the answer. It depends.
And I just dropped something in the chat. I'm pointing which way to the chat. Doesn't make any sense for me to point at the chat, but I just dropped something in the public chat about the new roadmap has been updated for 2023. So you can now see where they're going in the next upcoming year, way better than us guessing and speculating. This is coming directly from Google. So check that out. Cool.
Nice. I'm actually we didn't take a scan through that. It's a shame, but I have to see it right now. And that's nice.
Oh, we still got a few minutes. You could do what you want.
We can end with that. Let's see. Flutter ML. Yes, there's Flutter ML. There you go. It's not a question. Yeah. Why Flutter Google Maps not good as well expected in Flutter? Why Flutter Google Maps not good and as well?
They seem to work really well, don't they?
They work really well for everything that I've seen.
Right.
I don't. Maybe you can give an example of maybe what you're talking about, because I'm not quite getting the question here. The performance of Google Maps in Flutter has been, it did start off very well. Don't get me wrong, but they've performance optimized it. They've done a bunch of stuff. It's pretty good.
Yep.
Maybe there's a specific use case you've got. Like so this is the case, right? I've seen this before, and I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Like trying to load 10,000 dots or dots that, like, let's say markers, right, on a map, on a Google map.
Yeah.
If you're trying to load 10,000 markers on a map in one frame, you can't even see them. Don't load 10,000 because it's going to perform like crap, right? The same goes for don't load all these markers that are not in the viewport. Don't load like an entire country worth of markers to Google Maps and then go, why is it so slow? It's so slow because you went and loaded 1 million pins, and it's not designed for you. You load the data you're trying to display. It's up to you, not up to the mapping product to do that, right? And this is the thing. Maps are hard. I'm going to tell you right this. Maps, GPS. This is latitude, longitude. This is a hard. It's not like point and click and you're done. It's hard. So therefore, Google Maps has done the hard bit. They display the map. They pan around the map. They do all that kind of stuff. Well, for you to implement your stuff on top of that, that's up to you. You need to do the math. There's actually get viewport bounds, I think it is, something along those lines, which gives you the latitude and longitude of the northeast and southwest. And from that, you have a box of what's covered by the viewport. And you can say, give me, from your database or from your server or whatever, give me all the things that should be displayed on the screen between these areas. You get the pins, you display them, you're done. Keep it simple.
Yeah. Cool.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. Moving on. When the code base is growing, the analyzer and build runner starts to work slower and slower, usually taking 10 minutes to finish code gen. Is it possible somehow to speed up the gen and analyzer?
Faster computer.
Yes, that's one way. So I'm gonna suggest something. So this is something that I took on board quite early when I was doing my development with Dart Flutter. And so two things I can suggest. One is code gen will speed up in the future if you're not using the put it this way, code gen is going to be sped up in the future, right? Try and keep your code gen to one package so that if you make changes, only that one thing has to change, right? There might be like, you maybe have a models package or something else, but if you're going to have spread code gen throughout all your packages and all the things you depend on, all the rest of it, well, it's got to run code gen on everything. It's going to take time. Each package generates its own code generator entry point in Dart tools, which means that it's down to each package to be run independently. So that's what probably taking up your time, I suspect. I don't quite know your exact situation, but code gen can get slow. And I think I would look at honestly, just see what you're code generating and what can you get rid of from your code generator. What don't you need code generation for?
One of the tricks is that it's typically not checked in. You typically don't check in your build products into Git. And the problem with that is that then when you deploy, it has to regen everything from scratch, and you're paying for computer time to do that. And the riverpod project, for example, has actually, or is it riverpod? No, yeah, it's riverpod. Riverpod actually now checks in the generated products as well as the original source files. So when it goes to CI/CD, it's already got the files to check out right away. It still runs the builder step to make sure nothing got out of sync, but that's one trick you can use if what you're talking about is the time it's taking to do the generated step in your CI system.
I'm under the opinion that if I check out a commit, I expect the app to build exactly as it was on that commit. So I'm under the opinion that all generate code should be committed, because it's all about, like, you put it this way. Let's say you released a version of your app. It was generated on my machine with my tool set, whatever, and I didn't have the version number constraints quite right. Then in the future, you check it out and you get a later version of the code generates the code slightly differently, which means the bug that I saw in my build of the app doesn't exist, right? Therefore, I can't debug the application. Even though I've checked out exactly the same source code, the result is different. This is why I believe the code generated files should be checked into your repo. They conform to be a part of your app distribution. They are part of your committed code base.
That's a good tactic to take, yes.
But at the same time, I understand the viewpoint of, obviously, if you've got if your CI/CD should run the code generator, if it changes it, then it should spit out an error saying I can't build because the generated code is not correct. So you need to do that diffing in your GitHub Actions or something.
Right.
And then you have to take it on board yourself to regenerate and commit those files for it to generate a new build, right? This way that the CI environment is always up to date with your code base is always up to date with your code generation.
But anyway, there's a reason that PubGet actually prefers whatever versions in pubspec.loc is to absolutely sort of support this notion that you want to build exactly the same thing that I had.
Tragically, people do like pub upgrade, and then it upgrades the local lock file, and it goes out of date with the yeah. Also, another thing, some people don't commit the lock file, and I think that's, again, you should commit your lock file on a package. You should not, like on a pub package, you should not be committing your lock file, right? But on a application, your project, you should commit your lock file. Yep. Is it possible somehow to speed up generation and analyzer? Something that they've been doing from the very beginning about speeding up the analyzer. Only import the things you need. Only export the things you need. So, give an example. If you import a bunch of files, imagine this, and this kind of goes back to my C days, and this is why I kind of figured this into this, but it does work different in Dart. However, the premise is the same. In those import lines, it is the same as taking all that Dart code from that other file and sticking it right where that import line is, right? And imagine that you've just taken all the code from that Dart file, stuck it there. Now you've got to take all the Dart code that had to import and stuck it in its line. Suddenly you get one big file, which is all the Dart code that's dependent on to get your Dart to compile. That is yours, the imports, and those dependencies and those dependencies. It's a big old tree. This is why it can take a long time. Now, these are cached, by the analyzer and so on and so forth. However, when it comes to your project, what can happen is you import something else from your project, it imports something else. And before you know it, you've pulled the entire tree of your project in to analyze this one file. What you can do is just say import, show, and then only the things that you need. So, for example, if you're trying to import like the Dart framework, not the material design header, but the framework one, only import the things you need. So that way you don't import the entire framework, all the symbols from the framework. The same goes for like the Dart HTML package. Alias it, only import what you need. There's various occasions where using show and hide on your imports and also exporting only the things that you need can actually achieve a lot when it comes to analyzer speed.
And if you think that's tough, no, your IDE almost certainly has a shortcut. You have to figure out how to do it for your IDE, but in VSC is one of the light bulb things when you're looking at an import line that says generate the show for this one, which means it will add a show line that's only the symbols you're actually using down in your file. It's really kind of cool. Definitely fun to play with.
In fact, if you go to import something, it doesn't exist, but it knows it's coming from this other file. You do import, and then we'll add it to the show line for you. It's quite nice.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of cool.
All right. And then I think Lucas, welcome. The other Flame. Working on Flame. Right. What is the reason that Analyzer and Flutter Test isn't using ranges for its dependencies? That is a good one. And I know exactly this feeling. So sometimes you get these like dependency hell with analyzer and Flutter test where I think everyone's been here, and yes, I agree. It'd be nice if it was using ranges. I think this is more about the fact that there's quite a tight link between them. So there's quite a dependency on that. Although I think this is a good thing to feed back, because I think I've experienced that, Round has experienced that, quite a few other developers have experienced the same problem. So it feels to me like it's a problem that should be solved. Like they should have a better release cycle of the analyzer. It's called Analyzer API, I believe, the package, which is what the Flutter test one uses. It's like there's a protocol like the Federated plugins. There's a couple of protocol packages, and if they had a better way of releasing those, or release cycle, then maybe these other packages could have a wider range of version imports, and therefore help with the dependency conflicts that we've all been seeing. So I think that's a good point. I think it's solvable. Right. I think we've gone through all those questions, and I think
look at the URL then.
Look at the URL. Yes. There was nothing that came in that was a big thing that we should look.
Nah, the rest of it was again was sort of at the minor level.
And I said that's I've worked been. Oh, there you go. That we got there. It's all backwards. Yeah, there. That's because I was working on my 3D engine. I need to do some wacky stuff. I was just trying to figure it out. There you go. That's that. Yeah, I think that's.
Let's go to the list. I want to see the list.
I will mention. Sorry, I'm just going to mention quickly. I will mention that if you at the moment in the Flutter plugin on IntelliJ, if you have organized my imports ticked, and you try to use the Flutter formatter on save, it will screw up your imports, and actually like they literally get cut in half. It's all weird. It all messes up the code. So it's a bug. So yeah, just to be aware. Yeah, don't organize my imports. Don't take that. Hey.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it on the question front. I don't think there's anything else in the chat, is there?
Yeah.
No. I'm going to answer. Why not? Are Flutter well suited for high performance computational visualization of data? In fact, you want to go check out Robert Felker. He did generative art. It was beautiful, all done with Dart and Flutter. And so yes, you can do this. And the key for this is that it's AOT compiled. But again, like anything, I'd say any garbage collected language is that you're working at a high level language. So what I suggest you probably do in this sense is, like most of these things that are computationally heavy, they'll use some C++, some low level stuff to do the complex computational side of things, and then you use the high level language to bring that together to that partial data to inform running that computationally heavy code. But it doesn't really make much sense, like much difference. Run it in Dart. If it doesn't perform like you want, then you could go off and try and profile it and make it more performant. But you might find your bottleneck is completely somewhere else. It all depends on what you're building. Right. All right, that's it. Right. So we're going to go look at this roadmap because I'm curious.
Yep.
So let's see. Let me bring it up in stream. One moment. There we go.
Yep. Tiny little.
Let's make it bigger. And bigger.
Enhance sectors 14A through 23B.
We were talking about this the other day. What was it? Blade Runner. That was it. Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah.
Right. Intro transparency. Look. Long-term contributor for planned efforts and roadmap. Please reach out to Ian Hixie. Oh, he's put his personal email address. That's no good. Don't do that. Hixie, what are you doing? The roadmap is aspirational. It represents some of the most active contribution Flutter has planned for the work for the year, blah, blah, blah. 100% Flutter for a keynote to demo some of these future plans. Right, technical debt velocity is all important to work. The work we do to increase the overall velocity of the project, reducing technical debt like flaky tests also means improving our processes and productivity and so on and so forth. To this end, we will start a regular meeting for team members where velocity issues can be raised, documented, and addressed. Meetings are announced to team members in our Discord using Discord events feature.
Cool.
Depending on That's cool. So that means this, I don't know what this, I don't specifically, it says team. And it talks about the team also, it talks about the team up here being hundreds of open source contributors as well. So this, I don't know if this means that this meeting will be a semi-public affair in terms of the people that are actually contributing to the repo have a specific status called hacker in the Flutter. They're called Flutter hackers. That's the term. And they might be involved in able to attend these meetings. So that might be informative and helpful, especially anything we can do to bring the open source development community from the public community at large of developers and the team internal. Anything we can do to bring the overlap better in terms of future targets is always going to be better, because it means that I've seen this before. People don't get me wrong. This is why I think it's important for you to reach out if you're trying to do some trying to contribute to the Flutter the Flutter packages. Go speak to them on Discord and say, is this something I should be doing? Is this going to work? Because they can go, this isn't in our roadmap. We don't think you should do this. Wait for a year. We might have some better code for you to work off of. There's a conversation you can do before you work on it. Because I've seen this before. People have made for whatever they're building, they've made these enhancements. They put it back. They put the effort into putting it into the Flutter SDK, hoping that it's going to get merged. And they go, no, we're not going to merge it because it's not. It takes us away from the roadmap or from what we're trying to achieve with the Flutter SDK, which is perfectly understandable and reasonable. But I think the question here is like, yeah, reach out before you do that so that you can work with them. But yeah, I think anything that we can bring that working group together would be better. Anyway, right.
Indeed.
Depending on economic and epidemiological climates, i.e. COVID, we may have to organize a summit to bring the team together. We'll also plan some time in the year to go through our issue backlog, closing issues. Obviously, the actual prioritizing remaining issues. That's interesting. Okay, yeah. Gotcha, that's great. Performance, I mean, that's just general project, but yeah, good. Performance, top priority of Flutter improvements this year is performance. We want to completely remove shader, compiler, jank, first on iOS and then on Android and then on desktop. So that tells me, and I'm reading this, me just reading this, since the way they're removing it right now is implementing impeller. I'm thinking impeller is first on iOS, which we know, then it's going to come to Android, then it's going to come to desktop. That's what I read in that. And I'm completely reading into one sentence there, but I think that's a reasonable supposition from that.
Yep.
For web, we're working on supporting WASM as a target and have plans to investigate the use of multi-threaded rendering. Reduce the download size of basic Flutter application, improve the performance of custom shaders. That has got some interest. So, okay. So implement. So specifically web using multi. So they've got a render API SK WASM. I see. So the idea that they can use multiple render threads in the browser. So I wonder if that's using the worker stuff. I don't know enough about this, but basically to render chunks in parallel so you can improve the render performance and the render speed. It's one of the things that I think, I'm just talking in general here, but it's one of the things that I think is still a problem in the overall developer industry is not enough is being done with multi-core. So, I mean, Randall, I would like to know what you think about this, but in terms of multi-core, right? So a lot of apps are single-threaded, right? Like a lot of apps are in this notion, and it's trust me, from the mindset of the developer, building single-threaded makes sense. Well, as soon as you go multi-threaded and your things in parallel, and what happens, time becomes a big factor.
I think the problem has been that isolates have been relatively difficult to work with. I think the isolate run that has now just been put forward is going to change the way people think about isolates and think about threads and think about getting the most performance out of their multi-core machine. I think that is actually going to be we're turning a corner here. It's going to be a game changer for that.
It's interesting because we say this before, but having your state changes in set state, it means that you can have a multi-threaded build. We don't have a multi-threaded build right now. But when you build a view UI happens, there's no reason why you couldn't be building a subtree independent from another subtree potentially. But that invokes a whole new problem set in you know, I don't want to go into that, but that it's just not how Flutter is designed right now. Go on.
And I'm listening. We got to go away for 2 minutes, though, but I'll be listening.
No problem.
So,
no problem. And then there was one. Anyway, let's carry on here. But yeah, no, I think it's kind of key that a lot of applications don't require multiple threads, and that's completely understandable, single threaded. But you have to understand this, and it's nice that if the framework can use multiple threads to enhance the performance of your application without you having to think about them or do anything with them, even more the better for everyone. Right. For our VM-based backends, we're looking to improve our memory allocation strategy, improve responsiveness of app startup performance. So something I saw in the 3.7 or Dart 2.19 announcements. There are announcements. Actually, I'll load them up here. So this is, I'll put these links in the chat if you haven't seen them. This is the isolate run that went out yesterday. And you can get that one up, which talks a bit more about what we're just saying. But this really brings, from my understanding, from what I've read in this article, it's the compute function in Flutter which kind of wrapped the isolate startup and creating channels, basically creating a send port, receive port, and like swapping them around and doing all the kind of the sort of dance that you have to do with isolates. It takes all that away, makes a simple function called isolate.run, and it just works. That's the
better than that, though, because a compute had to be a global function that was sitting nearby. This run thing, you could just hand it a closure and it works.
That's so the other cool thing. And I think that's
so cool.
That's genuinely, I noticed that there's an error being highlighted here, and I wondered if that was because of this, if maybe this was a previous thing, but this could just be that the analyzer was set to a previous version of Dart. So I wouldn't worry about that right now. But yeah, no, the big problem, well, not big problem, but annoying thing about isolates, and for good reason, was that it had to be a global top level function for practicality purposes, because code is not shared between isolates. They've changed that model up a bit with the lightweight isolates. Now it's more like a fork. It keeps the memory. So I think that means they've had to must have been able to improve it. I don't know the details here.
I read this already, and it's really cool. Check that particular article out. But it really shows that isolate run, you can hand it a closure and it just works. And it's like, how the hell does it do that?
Yeah, I need to look at that, because I don't know, like it's not really been specific here. Like this is a top level function in these examples. I don't know. Well, we'll have to have a look at that. And then Dart 3.7. There is actually who mentioned this on Twitter? I think it was Rody Davis replied to my tweet. Hang on, let me just see if I can find it quickly. Rody, I think it was Rody, mentioned there was a package. There's a new package. Oh, there's it. Isolate agent. Just clicked in my head. Hang on, see if I can find it. Isolate agent. Isolate agents. Here we go. This is apparently coming from is what's coming up as well. I don't know quite understand where this is coming from or anything else other than it was quite interesting from what I saw. So isolate agents acts as, I've not looked at this. I don't know anything about this, but this is my first look here. Isolate agents are a new class agent, which is a proper implementation of the actor model for Dart, where isolates have no mechanism of communication. Agents do. This is inspired by Closures agents. Oh, okay.
Cool.
That sounds interesting. Maybe there's something there. Anyway, all right. So moving on, back to the roadmap.
Yeah.
All right, quality. Accessibility is critical to Flutter applications, and we'll continue investing heavily in making it easy for Flutter applications to be accessible, improving the quality of our accessibility support on all platforms. Similarly, it's important to continue improving our documentation in both cases. The improvements are largely expected to be in the form of bug fixes and small patches rather than large projects that are easy to describe the roadmap. Any of this important. Yeah. So basically, there should be a more more emphasis on quality of accessibility and the ways that we develop those accessible features in apps, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Accessibility is one of those things that really can get dropped off the radar quite easily when doing app development. You should. I've worked on some really big apps, and when you do that, you have to make them accessible. Just there's not an option not to make them accessible. Quite a large percentage of the audience on a larger app needs that accessibility. So the best thing I can suggest for anyone, if you're thinking about what is accessibility, well, there's whole pages and tons of stuff on the Flutter.dev site, as well as plenty of other things on general app development that you can find about accessibility. But a good example of doing this, and for yourself to try this, is on your phone, you can put on a screen reader, and you can actually navigate on using the touch system on your phone to highlight, to read out, double tap, to action. You can do all these kind of things, and you close your eyes, put some earbuds in or whatever, and just try using your phone without even looking at it. If you can't do that, your app is not accessible, right? And that's particularly for blind, obviously, and stuff, but it can also go with visually impaired and other things. Like, there's plenty of other ways. So that's just all about mobile apps, but the same goes across the board, right? Things like making sure your touch targets are quite big, your colors don't clash. Color blindness is a big deal, and you should make sure your apps work. So inside of Android, inside the developer options, you can turn on different color blindness modes, and it puts a filter over the entire screen, and you can see what your app would look like if you were colorblind. And you see all these two colors look exactly the same, and I can't tell where the button starts and the background begins. Okay, I should change my colors. So that's the kind of thing you can do, and it's just being more thoughtful about accessibility.
I believe there's a pub package for that. And also the thing about touch targets, it's like everybody always seems to want to make a button that's smaller than the minimum touch size. And don't, because it needs to be that big. That's what they figured out, is that it needs to be that big. So just design around that.
If it's not big enough you can touch with your thumb, it's not working. It doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
Your thumb should be it's literally, I think it was originally called that thumb size or something. I can't remember, but it was like that was the measurement, if I remember rightly. It was a long time ago.
Maybe that's why a slider calls it a thumb. I don't know. Maybe all right.
We will also continue to implement features and fully fidelity of each platform. Fast-moving Android, iOS, Cupertino, implement support for Android's predictive back gesture. That's the new feature, isn't it? I've heard about that. And Android's handwriting input, which I know they did input on handwriting input on something else now, right? That was a new thing that was added recently. I can't remember. Maybe it was in the previous release. They added for iOS. That was the iPad. You can now do on iPad. You can now use the stylus to input text. We also plan to port the camera plugin to Android's latest Camera X APIs. Also, that's also needed for that kind of stuff. Yeah, stylus input on Android. So to be clear, you can already use stylus in your apps. This is not like adding stylus input. You can already use that in your apps. You can already get the point information that it's a stylus, where they're touching, how hard they touched, all that kind of stuff. But this is about picking up the scribbles that you do as text using the handwriting recognition built to the platform. How will Flutter implement Android's 13th predictive back gesture, according to this page? So I think I've seen this, but I'm kind of curious. Yes, yeah. So again, this is more about like updating the shell. And this example here is one of these things that can be done by contributor, right? Like, you can read up the SDK, you can go edit the shell. That is like the bit of Android code that that wraps your app, that does the interaction with the platform. That's completely accessible to you, and you can run that in your app, and you can validate it and verify you fixed the problem, whatever the problems are or what the problems exist are. Go look at the issue tickets, comment on them, see if they want some help. Why not? Right. There's a ton of them. Like, honestly, you can just go through the issue tickets. If you spot an issue that you think you can fix, comment on it. I think I can fix this. Can someone assign it to me? Boom. Right. Start doing it, you know? We will continue to work on SLSA compliance, supply chain integrity. This is the new security stuff, right? Yeah. SASL4 next year. extending our tooling to enable Flutter package and application development to achieve the same security. Because they did this new, what was the GitHub's security scanner that scans if you're using like packages with exploits or something like that in like, now it does JavaScript and a bunch of, now it does Dart apparently. I think there was a previous, in the Dart Lang medium, you'll find there's a post about it. They've actually now integrated with them a bit better. All right, features. We do expect to spend some time on new features, generally driven from the motivations of how many thumbs up reactions they have. So again, if you don't know this, for the people that are watching that don't know this, thumbs up on tickets on the issues in the GitHub, and that's how they understand how important it is to us, the developers. Parity and portability, one of the supported features. Blah 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 blah. Most notable features we can expect to implement this year: custom asset transformers. Oh, very nice, very nice. So this would be more like I noticed there was it Flutter generate. It used to have generate, vector graphics and various things. Been able to like do more sort of, instead of code generation, you do it as part of your build process, basically.
Wow, cool.
I'll let you carry on reading here, Randall, for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay, I can't move the pointer around, but at least I can stare at stuff. And one of the things that I saw that was interesting in that list is multiple windows. So I know a lot of people out there have been sort of clamoring on, especially now that we have desktop, to be able to have both your main window and your daughter window and have them both be useful and movable and things like that. And that's cool. You know, it sounds like they're actually going to commit to get some of that done. Platform views on Mac OS and Windows, that'll be cool. Thing that to work this year. These are all goals for this year too. Notice up at the top of the page there. Yes, this is all this year. Drag and drop. They already have drag and drop, I guess, for mobile, but this is probably like for desktop. Ooh, dragging it off onto the desktop and from other apps. That would be really cool. Wireless debugging on iOS, there already is a tentative release on that. I don't know if you have to do something special as a patch or something, but yeah, wireless debugging on iOS, in theory, under certain conditions, already works. So they're probably going to make it a lot more stable. Thanks, James. Yes, use the Schwartz to be able to move the pointer. Right. It looks like your Schwartz is bigger than mine. All right. Let's see. And we also have custom Flutter create templates. Oh, this has been rumored for a while. This is part of the reason that Mason was created, but to basically have a way of having a house standard for your let's get rid of the counter app, please. I don't want to have to keep deleting the counter app. That is just crazy. And this would help do that. That is great. It's like, Flame engine stuff, things like that. Element embedding. I think that's a web thing that they showed this morning, earlier today, a couple hours ago. So that'll be kind of cool. Let's see, I skipped over one here. Efficient 2D scrolling. Ooh, okay. So what Infinite Scroll does with 2D, but interactive viewer, does with 2D, but maybe efficient with widgets and stuff, with tables and trees. Oh, tables and trees. Oh my, yes. That would also be very cool. I think I covered most of those that I can see. And I can't really scroll anything else, so I guess I'll just wait for Simon to come back. I'm sure he's on his way, rushing quickly and hurriedly back now that I'm saying his name 2 or 3 times. Did we have any questions in here that I can quickly answer? About compute versus the new run. I believe compute is now written using run. So it's really, if they didn't believe it was better, they wouldn't do it that way. So yes, I believe you can pretty much ignore compute now and just use run for everything, because effectively compute already is. When will macros be released? In the future. Yes, we can't. We don't know. It's we're not any more privy to the schedule than they are, or than you are. And in fact, again, the Flutter team doesn't really want to lock down dates because they want to make it correct first. And then they'll release it. It'll be released not before it's time. That's definitely pretty sure. Oh, I could have been doing this. I could have been coming in like this and putting the screen up there. Now that I've already answered that question, I'll go ahead and hide it. Okay. So we kind of went through that list there. That's fine. Good.
You go through the list.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, efficient 2D scrolling, great. Multiple windows, impeller. I know they did. I saw something in one of those demos actually was about multiple windows or desktop windows.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was on the stream today.
Yeah.
Platform views, cool. Drag and drop. Yep. Wireless debugging on iOS,
which probably already works.
Our second most requested feature. I mean, I guess that must be important for iOS. I don't know, like you need to charge your device, right? Like,
yeah,
sure
I don't mind. I've got a cord on here. I don't mind having the cord stay on it 24 hours a day when I'm not actually physically next to my machine.
I'm also just wondering what the impact. Most people don't realize the impact of wireless is quite a lot. Like in terms of
performance.
Delay. Like network. So you might have a ping time of like 10 milliseconds, right? But if you've got a packet loss rate of like 50%, it doesn't matter if you've got 10 milliseconds because 50% of your packets have to be retransmitted to get them across the wire.
Yeah.
And they might have to be retransmitted multiple times if you've got a bad wireless connection. So Wi-Fi is one of those things where it easy can be wrong, you know, like
I think it's to have parity with the fact that you can do that on Android. People are upset that they can't do it on their iOS, but they can do it on Android. So I don't know. People just want to have a workflow that's basically I throw my machine onto the desk and now I'll debug with it. I know. I don't mind plugging it in.
I get it. I did debugging, wireless debugging. It is necessary. There's certain things you need to do where wireless debugging is required. Like, but yeah, for the most part, yeah. Anyway, custom Flutter create template. Sure. Oh,
yeah, that's cool.
No, nice. Support element embedding.
I think that's the web thing we saw.
That was the web thing that we saw. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Research. A lot of developers have expressed an interest in creating applications that integrate closely with the look and feel of their target platform while supporting multiple platforms without having to re-implement the interface multiple times. We want to study whether some form of adaptive layout would be able to address these needs, starting with Android versus iOS. They did do that with like the some widgets, right? Like Switch as switch.adaptive constructor, which will give you the Cupertino switch on iOS or give you the Android switch on Android, right? I think
the progress indicator is now got adaptive on it as well.
I seem to remember there's a Flutter design doc around this. Hang on. So if people don't know, I'm going to bring this up. So there's this page called Flutter. I'll put this link in the chat. This is where all like the future stuff or ideas and concepts are being discussed, and these is where they become a standard. They do want your feedback. Just to let you know, they want your feedback. So Android to just buffer. Like there's a bunch of stuff in here, right?
Cool.
And I seem to remember. Maybe it's adaptive font. I seem to remember there was something around like you know with that we have like a lot of buttons. We have the material design buttons. You have the Cupertino stuff, and I think there was like this. I can't see it in there. I'm pretty sure I can't remember what it was called, but I'm pretty sure there's some discussion around this notion of having a base set of widgets and really separating out the Cupertino material widgets from Flutter so that their own like maybe packages or something. You know? So we kind of get this kind of more holistic approach to develop. So if you don't have to include any of the material stuff for non-material apps, right? But it also means that if you want to build on top, you have a good foundation of widgets to build on top of to do your custom. So that way it works on iOS, it works on Windows, it works on Mac and so on, rather than having to re-implement a lot of stuff, right? But there's a lot of work there. It's not like a simple proposition. I don't quote me on that. I think I just remember seeing something about it. With our new graphic backend comes opportunity for new features, and one of these particular interests study more closely integrate with 3D into our Flutter scenes. We expect to begin 3D experiments this year.
Similarly,
Wow.
we believe in new graphics backend may enable improvements on low-level .UI API for new shader features. I've got so much that I could add. I'm going to speak to them about this because yes. Yeah, I've been covering 3D quite a lot. I've got a lot of I know a lot what a lot about this kind of stuff. There's so many things that they could do here in this regard. Relatedly, we are investigating implementing white color gamut support. Probably start with iOS. Relatedly. Oh, whoops.
Relatedly. Yeah, missing a letter there. No, it's correct, but yeah, all right, doesn't matter. Wide color gamut support. Ooh.
Oh, so this is So this is like having what's it called?
The right color space.
Oh, yeah. The color proper like more than RGB color space support. But what is it called?
Gamut. The gamut of it.
No. I know they call it this on here. And you've got color profiles and so on. No, but there's actually that's gonna bug the hell out of me now. It's like you can get YouTube videos that support this on like screen on those high dynamic contrast big TVs. They now have these videos that support this thing that I cannot remember the name of it. It's gonna bug the hell out of me. Yeah, whatever. All right. I'm sure someone will tell me in a minute.
Yep.
We are actively All right. We're actively investigating migrating from ICU 4C to 4X. The new Rust-based ICU backend. Ooh! So, if those that don't know, ICU is the international. It's basically the international code support for all the localizations. I can't remember international code something. International components of Unicode. That's the one. International components of Unicode. Yeah, it's the stand. It basically has a bunch of the standards around like localization, and there's one data file that gets shipped with every Android app called ICU-DTL.dat, I think it is, which is like a binary file which contains all the information about Unicode and the standards around localization that lets you do these things. But I'm guessing 4C is the current one, and they're going to switch to 4X, which is going to be Rust-based, which is interesting. Maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know the aspirations of why. Oh, there's actually official. Okay, so Unicode.org actually officially announced that this is the new client-side implementation for resource-constrained environments. Okay. Small modular code. This is nice. So maybe we're going to actually see, because it's quite large. It's about, I think uncompressed, it's about 700K, I think.
Wow.
Which will be required to research on how to embed. We research how to embed Rust in our build pipeline across all our platforms. I really like this. How to use Rust code shared between our engine and the .FFI packages, and how to perform tree shaking for binary code used in such packages. Tree shaking with Rust. Oh, that sounds really good. I mean, like Rust itself is such a brilliant concept, and I think as a systems level language, Rust has really like completely surpassed C like as the de facto standard for that kind of practice. So whatever you would previously code in C++, now you code in Rust, because Rust has all the things that Dart, very essentially that Dart brings along in terms of like nullability and unwrapping. There's like all those concerns around like safety of code is all apparent in Rust language. I've been learning and reading a lot about it recently. It's quite interesting. Anyway, which required how to embed Rust in the All right. Finally, we expect to spend some time investigating how to update Flutter to take advantage of new features coming from Dart this year, such as updating APIs, support records and patterns, updating our tool chain to support RISC-V, or making use of new FFI features. I'm going to be contributing anything I can on this. So I'm actually going to be playing around with this. So I'll be speaking to them about that. Making use of new FFI features for plugins. We have plans for 4 stable releases and 12 beta releases during. So we have a beta release every month and a stable release every quarter. During 2020, we'll probably more announce new features when they reach beta channel rather than when waiting for them to become stable. In general, we encourage people to look for a faster update cycle, use the beta time. So this is something we saw. So I think quite a few people, when they shut down dev, went to stable.
and quite a few developers sit on stable, and I think sitting on beta is a better practice to do as a developer, and then but releasing on stable, if that makes sense. And there is don't get me wrong, there can be some compatibility problems, like you might be using something ahead of before it's released and you have to make some changes. But I think the practicality of working ahead when it comes to this release cycle is a lot better. Non-goals. We unfortunately have to shelve our current efforts in implementing hot reload on web, as our web compiler experts are all working on the WAS in production support. We also have no plans on currently implementing code push, built-in support for wearables, Apple Watch, Android Wear, and automotive integrations, built-in support for SEO on web, or installation via Homebrew. Some of these have excellent packages available though. Yeah. So they're all things that they're just been shelved at the moment. So not goals for this current period. There could be goals for next periods, but not at the moment. I mean, the thing is, there's already plenty of so first of all these things can be done. Like, it's just requires effort, right? They're not, the Flutter team are not going to be doing it, but there's no reason why. Again, you can't use the excellent packages out there by the community or work on it yourself. In general, we're prioritizing issues with the most thumbs up interaction. GitHub, and the student may notice that a list of non-goals include a number of these highest rated. Unfortunately, we have discovered a pattern which we did not expect. Though it's an obvious in retrospective, when we address all the highest ranked issues except for those that are technically infeasible or intractable for whatever reason, the result is that the highest ranked issues are left on all the issues that are infeasible or somehow intractable. Yeah.
Yes.
This is a good point, right? It's a good point. Also see popular issues, discuss each of the top 10 issues. Okay, so there's actually like a... so this actually got some nice discussion around... oh, that's nice. So they've actually got... They've got some discussion and points on each of these. That's really helpful, actually. That's really. And
now I've got some reading to do.
It's not just that. I was going to say, here's where we direct people to when they ask these questions, like SEO on web. You go here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Popular issues.
Yeah.
I'm going to post it in the chat. That's great.
Keep that on a hot key. We're going to need that for next week and the week after and the week after. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
People ask those questions. Yep. Cool.
Well, HDR. That was it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you were just thinking about HDR. Okay. Yeah.
That was what I was saying. Yeah. So someone was asking when I was thinking about the high dynamic range HDR, and that means that those screens that support the wider color gamuts you can support HDR.
Yeah. Well, HDR originally was just about the Luma dimension, though. It wasn't about better colors. It was only about Luma, bright to dark.
Right,
but the HDR Plus was also brought up in the chat. Probably HDR Plus also means also color gamut.
Sure, but to support so what it is like, you know, that each of your colors is red, green, and blue, and at the moment they're 8-bit ranges of 0 to 255. So a lot of displays now are 10-bit, right? So you get like a huge. I mean that doesn't sound like a lot, but you get a 2 orders of magnitude larger color space to work with, which means that you could get finer grain colors and a wider color gamut because of that. Now that gives you that high dynamic range of brightness because you work on red, green, blue at the same time. That gives you your brightness depth, but then to actually give your depth of of color, it also gives you the wider color range to work with. And by having the wider color range, you can then fit your you'll see these diagrams of the color range supported and the triangle,
the color cubes and stuff, the 3D cubes.
Yep. And that's how that you can basically map the color gamut stuff is mapping the wider color range onto a smaller color space definition, basically. That can also happen, but also equally supporting 10-bit, 16-bit channels is equally important, but also a lot larger effort. So it varies, but yeah. It's also about dealing with new hardware as well. Anyway, I'll shut up about that. It's quite interesting.
That's 3.5 hours. I think we probably ought to start wrapping up here.
We haven't. I don't think we've broken our records yet, but this is it. I think that's it. So
it's close. If it's not already, it's close. People ask, "Oh, do you want to do some live coding there, Simon? Do you want to do some live coding for today?"
Not today.
Okay.
No, that's
You're
it.
not going to take the new release and turn on some of the macros.
I'm not joking. When I saw some of the stuff like that, I was really tempted to do that. But yeah, no, we've had a lot going on. I think that's it. We're gonna call it a day.
Thanks everybody for stopping by,
for sticking around,
especially our new people. There were definitely some new people in the chat today, so thank you for coming along from the other show to our show. We're here every week.
Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and all that.
And that too.
Nonsense.
That too.
Subscribe, press the bell, and all that. I don't know. Yeah, go for it. So
ring
thanks
the
for joining
gong.
us.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and
Thanks,
we'll
Simon.
see you again next week. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.